amount of historical knowledge that Town Administrator Fisher has that some of the other employees just don't have. And so we want to be able to pull on that, and, you know, the various boards that she has sat on, we want to be able to pull on that knowledge if we need it. So it's not a matter of, yeah, some other folks can help fill in knowledge, but town staff said that they don't have the knowledge and they want to be able to pull on Miranda's when possible.
And just for sake of public comment, we got, for sake of precedent, I have confirmed the last 2 outgoing town administrators were contracted for consulting, so this is not a new thing. And it will be very worthwhile. Other clarifying questions on the 7 items in the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
Ready?
Thank you.
All right. Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Larson,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Ty,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Trustee Miller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mayor Billy, I did just want to know that I believe we have someone from out Boulder County who just wanted to say a few words about the Pride Proclamation.
That'd be great. That'd be great. If you'd like, go ahead and step up to the podium there, and there's that little microphone. You're gonna need to push a button. That there should be a bright green LED light. If not, push that little button. When the green light's on, we can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Juan Moreno Heham. I'm here on behalf of Out Boulder County. We're very grateful for the city of Nederland to be able to put out the Pride Proclamation this year. We're having hopefully all the cities in the county doing the same in order to kick off Pride Month. We will, and Davis, our volunteer coordinator, is going to be having volunteers come up here in the next week or so to be able to hand out pride flags to businesses, make sure that we're being visible. So we just wanted to thank you all so much.
Thanks for coming up. We appreciate it.
Of course.
With that, we'll go ahead and move into our staff reports. What questions do we have for the staff regarding the reports?
No questions, just Dr. Miranda Fisher, thank you so much for your service.
We'll focus on that even more.
So proud to have worked with you. You are admired and appreciated, and I want you to remember that wherever you go. And if it takes us 10 years to maybe get you back here, we'll keep doing it. But thank you for the opportunity. Love you. I'm proud to see you just continue to grow. Thank you. Rest of the town staff, I know you
And
did.
your staff report was excellent. Thank you.
The rest of the town staff reports are awesome, but sorry, that one's sort of top of mind. Yay, see safe.
Any other questions towards any of the staff who turned in reports? All right, hearing none. We have BOT reports, which we all turned in actual document, so that's awesome. And any questions for us or from us about those?
Mayor Billy?
Yeah.
I'd like to just make it up. Oh, that's really loud.
Yes.
I just make an update because when I submitted my report, I had nothing to report, but mainly because the BZA meeting was last night. And so I just want to, yep, she just adjusted that on me. I just wanted to announce that, very proud to say that Steve Sepek has been elected the new chair of the BZA with Max Ovitt as vice chair. I want to make sure that got recognition. Thank both of those guys for stepping up and volunteering to lead that board. We had a good meeting last night and a decision was made. And
is Mark still on the board?
Mark is still on the board.
Cool.
Everyone's still on the board. We just elected a new chair and vice chair, brought in some new blood, some new ideas. Yeah, so it's great.
That is great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else have specific comments to make on your reports? I'll make one. The regional elected officials meeting that the Boulder County Commissioners held a meeting. And it was great. All the communities, in the county represented, I think even Broomfield as well. And then, just talked about specifics about how all the communities are, what we are and aren't doing for sake of the homeless and as well as housing. And, heard from commissioners, mayors, town administrators, housing coordinators, specific people with expertise, and, talked about types of regional partnerships that can happen around the county. I did talk to them about the fact that we're going to be kind of digging into we're doing a feasibility study with Lyons and Gilpin County on a housing authority, potentially a mountain housing authority. And, just knowing that the rest of the county sometimes doesn't get what we need as well as we do. So, there was support for that, and hopefully they'll be able to give us resources as well. And this was the kickoff meeting with more to come with that bigger group. Yes, Asa.
I wasn't trained on what you guys wanted for the BOT reports, and Sergeant Mendez should be here any minute, but as we'll be transitioning to her, I just want to make sure you guys are getting what you want in that report. So we can't give, with it being public record, names, addresses, but just the breakdown of the major calls, what type of calls we responded to, numbers. Are you guys happy with the reports you're getting? Do you want to see something different? Are the graphs helpful? Are they not? Just want to know what you guys are wanting out of those reports and if you're getting what you want.
I am personally, and I know the newspaper wanted the information they've been asking for. I don't know if you're also giving the Mountaineer what they want, but I feel like these reports, for sake of, from my perspective, and I'll let folks, trustees speak for themselves, for sake of our, these monthly reports have been great.
I've spoken to the Mountaineer on one occasion. I told them any specifics they need to go through sheriff's office records to get a full request.
Okay.
Otherwise, I was told that the BOT notes and those documents would be public record and that they can get the blurb from that.
Great.
But they haven't reached out for anything specific to me.
Then they're content.
Okay.
Because they would if they weren't. Mine and Jennifer.
I just had a quick comment on the graphs. I thought it might be valuable to have a kind of time incident timing graph, just like what time of day or night things are.
Yeah, and
most of the calls are.
that's super easy. In the main document, I get a breakdown. We can also break it down by day and time, so you guys can see when the highest call volume is. And that's really easy to add in there if that's something you guys would be interested in.
Yeah, I think it'd be really helpful.
Okay.
Anything else for any other feedback on what you want to see in these reports from Boulder County Sheriff's Office?
No, other than thank you for the reports. It's very helpful to have just a pulse of what's going on in the community. So thank you.
Jennifer, do you want to, we introduce Jennifer? I think we've all met you, but if not, can you just do kind of a in the mic intro? Because there's people online that may not have.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, if you can hear an echo, then we can.
Okay, I've met a couple of you, but those of you that don't know me, I'm Jennifer Mendez, Sergeant with Boulder County. So at the end of June, Asa is going to be moving to a different position and I'll be taking his spot up here for the contract. So I don't think in terms of scheduling, I'll probably be still on the same schedule. I'll stay on the same schedule as he was. So I don't think there'll be too much of a crazy transition, I think. So.
Well, thank you and congratulations Lisa. So yeah, we'll learn more here, I think, later, but thank you. Appreciate it. Welcome. Any other questions on the BOT reports? If not, we'll go to our first informational item of the evening, the comprehensive plan update with SE Group and the downtown sub-area plan. I think, I didn't even look at the name, Ms. Cheney.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Aiden and Cheney are both on. So tonight for you is going to be your standard SE group update. They do it every other month for you, but then Cheney Bostic is also here to do a really specialized focus on the downtown sub area plan she's been working on. So I believe Aiden is kicking it off and then passing it on to Cheney.
Yeah, absolutely. I can start. Can you all hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, included in the packet, we had about a 2-page recap of the project process to date. SE Group has completed the initial project engagement phase. So that included the visioning open house, which many of you attended, participated in the online survey, and then we held several stakeholder conversations that aligned generally with the topics of the comprehensive plan that is included on that second page. So 1, 2, 3, 4, there's about 8 or 9 of those stakeholder meetings. And then we had a downtown workshop, both online and in person, which Cheney is here to talk about today. As far as next steps in this project, we will be in town tomorrow to hold a couple of workshops. One is on housing, one is on sustainability and resiliency, and one is on land use. And so those will go a little bit further than just purely existing conditions, but we'll be working with key stakeholders to talk about potential recommendations and policies that the town can develop in regards to those different topics. We are on schedule, which is really awesome. You never know exactly what will happen in one of these processes. And then after we finish those workshops tomorrow, we will be working on a plan outline to run by the Planning Commission at their next, I believe about a month from now, in their second June meeting. Yeah, so I'm gonna cede most of my time to Cheney. She has much more interesting material to go over today, but I'm happy to take any questions at the end in terms of overall project process.
Thanks, Aiden. So I will take over. I'm seeing a little picture of you guys there in person. Welcome, new board members. I'm Cheney Bostic with Studio Seed. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
And I see that you have laptops. Are you viewing the presentation on your laptop screen, or is it on a larger screen in the room?
It's on 2 large screens in the room and some of us have laptops.
Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna go into presentation mode and just run through where we are as if give some of you an update. Hopefully you've been involved through the process. You know, basically the last 6 months we've been working on this, and it was the board's decision to kind of front load the downtown sub area plan because there was some urgency around downtown issues. So I am Cheney Bostic with Studio Seed. I'm part of the SE Group team for the comprehensive plan, but my focus has always been to really zero in on the downtown and create a downtown sub area plan. You should have in your packet the slides. I'm going to skip through a couple just to, for the sake of time today, and get right to the meat of the draft recommendations. So I'll give you a little bit of background, who we've engaged with, and then go into the plan structure and draft maps and recommendations. So in terms of downtown sub-area plan engagement, we We engaged with the community at the comprehensive plan open house in January that had about 50 participants, and we had a downtown station where we talked to people about downtown. We also had 2 workshops specifically focused on the downtown. One was virtual due to the Snowmageddon that happened on March 13th. So we pivoted to virtual and actually had good attendance. About 24 people, citizens participated in that. We did a downtown workshop in person the week after that and had about 15 participants. And then we did an online survey and had 246 participants. And that's in addition to the comprehensive plan online survey. So we feel like we reached a lot of folks in those methods. We've checked in with the board a couple times. I understand now we have a couple new board members. So this is an update for you all as well. And then we've reached out to specific groups, had focus groups and other meetings. We were involved with the Downtown Colorado Inc., the DCI engagement with the DDA, and downtown businesses through them. We had a downtown business and property owners focus group. We followed up with downtown business and property owners with some email engagement. Met with town staff multiple times, DDA director, Ron Mitchell, Nancy Blackwood with the CBD redevelopment proposal, talked to Nederland Farmers Market, Food Pantry, Community Garden, and have reached out to some other major property owners, Christian Vanek and Tebow Properties, and hope to meet with them soon. So just to give you an idea of all of the engagement that we've tried to do through this process. We have developed a boundary for the Sudbury plan. And it's shown in red in this map. So basically from 3rd Street, Boulder Canyon Drive over to Barker Reservoir, Chapito Park, down past the commercial area, and over to the mill and back. So that's kind of the focus area for the downtown plan. The plan will highlight some catalytic projects. As was mentioned in one of the focus group meetings, these are not brand new ideas. These are ideas that have been floated by the community, talked about, in some cases for years and years, but nothing has been done. And so that's exactly what the Downtown Sudbury Plan can do. It provides a blueprint for decision-making for the board, for commissions, chairs, and the DDA. So while these may not be brand new ideas, they will be a bunch of ideas and a framework for you to execute from in terms of having a plan, because one doesn't exist. So the catalytic projects listed here in no particular order are the First Street Festival Street, looking at redesigning First Street from the highway to Snyder Street. We talked a lot about this in our engagement, and I'll go through what we're recommending. Number 2 is really focusing on your gateways and intersection improvements to welcome people to town, provide wayfinding, beautification, improve the roundabout, improve wayfinding, improve how people move throughout town. Number 3 is Snyder Street Bridge, the second crossing of Boulder Creek. Number 4 is a concept to improve the waterfront, create a waterfront park, an amphitheater, and other amenities for the community, and really take over the waterfront as part of Nederland's culture and experience. And then number 5, kind of seen throughout, is highlighting areas where private investment and redevelopment could occur. And so these are key catalytic sites that have either been proposed for development in the past, or are vacant land, like the area near Barker Reservoir, which we talked about at length through this process. The plan area structure will be divided into 4 categories: connectivity and parking, growth and character, recreation, tourism, and placemaking, and organization, partnerships, and programs. And I'll go through at a high level each of these categories. So in terms of connectivity and parking, this diagram shows key circulation and parking recommendations. In terms of circulation, it was talked about again and again, especially if we're looking at the Snyder Street Bridge, we should really look at downtown holistically and understand if the bridge is going to do anything to the circulation and what we would change if so. So we've kind of looked at the future circulation of downtown. We're trying to minimize one-way streets. You can see in this diagram, 2nd Street, east of Snyder would still be function as a one-way, as would 1st Street. But around the area where Jefferson Street is, here's a blow up of, this is Jefferson Street. This is the parking lot at the visitor center. And these designs are already preliminary and have been vetted with CDOT that Jefferson would be a one-way southbound. So we're recommending to go ahead with that recommendation with angled parking to put more parking in there. But we have made a recommendation to change the circulation of the parking lot to be clockwise rather than today it's counterclockwise. What clockwise does is you would turn in, make a left turn in, and then you're able to circulate clockwise. If you don't find a parking space, you can make a right turn, which is easier than a left turn, and keep going. If you still don't find a parking spot, you can then continue on through 1st Street and go down to other parks. So anyway, it eliminates congestion on the highway and helps with that circuitous movement in downtown. Those are a couple changes. In terms of parking, first, improving the knowledge of and enforcing public parking with signage enforcement, having an employee parking plan. We talked to a lot of businesses, and I was really impressed that most businesses actually have their own employee parking plan, that their employees are parking somewhere other than priority spaces. So that's good, but keep going. Add to on-street parking supply when street improvements are made, and we will have a list of these in the plan and prioritization of them, there are opportunities to add on-street parking, lots and lots of on-street parking opportunities. If they were just striped better and the roads were improved a bit, you could add to your supply that way. Also, eventually working with new developments to include public parking, potentially looking at expanding the RTD lot. We're, have all kinds of recommendations around parking, and then eventually looking at paid on-street and public parking lots. And then the money generated from that can go back into investing in parking improvements. Also under connectivity and parking, we look at trails, sidewalks, and pedestrian crossings. We've really been coordinating with Fair and Piers, who's on our team and also working on the transportation multimodal master plan right now. So all of these recommendations will coincide, but they offer a little bit more detail. So for downtown, we're going into the color coded in here. Black are where existing sidewalks are and should be upgraded or maintained. Dark blue is first priority, so those should be your number one priority for adding sidewalks, and then light blue would be second priority. And then we have some new crossing recommendations, pedestrian bridges over the creek, Snyder Street bridges in there. So really just looking at this diagram more as how do you move around with personal mobility, so walking, riding your bike, and rolling. When we get into growth and character, this is a future land use map. So we looked at both what exists today and how what's anticipated in the future. Downtown core mixed use is in this kind of dark maroon color. That is your central business district. It's where you would encourage a mix of uses with the highest concentration of buildings density. Downtown neighborhood mixed use is in this kind of pink color, and that would encourage a mix of uses, but more in a residential character. So not really downtown buildings, but more of a residential character. The red is downtown commercial, so really primarily commercial uses. The orange is downtown residential, so primarily residential uses. Downtown public is blue, so those are parking spaces, parking lots library, town hall, things like that. And then parks and open space, kind of running through, we have this theme along Boulder Creek to Barker Reservoir, creating this consistent trail corridor and series of parks that again enhances the placemaking and recreation opportunities of Nederland. We have, so in a couple areas, some things I want you to think about. I'm not going to pause just because there's a lot to get through, but let's discuss this in questions. Is two potential historic districts were recommended in the past, and one of those was the Mill, and another one was First Street Residential because of the architecture that it contains. So I want you to think about those two recommendations. We wouldn't be designating a historic district. It's just a recommendation to pursue or look more into it to see if it's viable and to connect those two historic districts with the vitality of First Street could be a cool concept. And then there is the vacant land by the post office that was talked a lot about in our engagement because it's prime real estate. It's right by Barker Reservoir. If you think about the extension of downtown, the ability to provide housing and a mix of uses, that is another area where right now we're kind of designating that as a downtown residential site, where a location where you could add housing units to downtown, but that's something to think about.
Hey, Cheney, real quick, I have a question. Can you go back to the last slide?
Yep.
So you had mentioned not actually designate them as a historic district, but could we?
Not in the plan. So that would take property owners' approval. So the only thing that a town or the board could do is educate property owners on the benefits of creating a historic district. It's already been recommended. So it's just up to property owners or the petition process in your code to create a historic district.
And can you rattle off the benefits of being a historic district?
Yeah, I mean, the main benefits are tax incentives to property owners. So there are tax rebate incentives available for historic districts. There's the placemaking aspect. So, celebrating the history and the tourism that may come from that. So there are, and just preserving history and not allowing, these historic assets to, I looked at the historic survey that was done, I think maybe in the early 2000s, and already two of those buildings that were marked as potentially historic have been demolished. So it protects those structures from being demolished. That's another benefit.
Right, thanks.
Another thing that the purpose of this project and focusing on downtown was to update or recommend updates to the existing CBD guidelines and standards. They were updated last in 2012. They're a bit outdated. There's some good stuff in there, no doubt, but they are a bit updated and things have changed. We went through a process. We showed a lot of pictures, what we call a visual preference survey. I'll go through the outcomes of that with you about what people thought was meant, Nederland character, so that we can tease out what do people like and what do they want new development to look like and what would be appropriate for downtown. However, we focused on First Street. And so one of the things that we're going to recommend and what we looked at with the community was increasing setbacks and kind of massaging the mass of a building to be lower scaled, still allow up to 35 feet, but stepping back that third floor, for example. Some of that is dimensional standards that would really be best updated by updating the CBD zone district. However, as you can see, the CBD zone district is more than First Street. It includes properties along 2nd, the triangular properties. So we need to think about what the best solution for that is. You can either, if we really want to focus on First Street, we could do an overlay zone district that modifies those standards and adds to the CBD standards and guidelines. Or if you want to update the entire CBD zone district, we would just need to look comprehensively at that whole maroon area. That's where the CBD guidelines apply today. The orange areas surrounding that is where historic residential guidelines apply, and those are only for residential properties. So if a commercial property went in, down by HubNet or Black Forest or any of those, they would not have to go through design review or design standards. Second thing is your design standards and guidelines are currently administered by staff or by board and planning commission, which traditionally does not consist of design professionals. So a recommendation might be to consider hiring either a third party professional or to create design review body to administer those. And thinking about, what's your motive? What's your goal here? We know there's some pending development along First Street, and that is a high priority. Should we just focus there? Or do you want to comprehensively look at the CBD and, take into consideration where other commercial or mixed use properties could redevelop? Do you want them to be purview to design guidelines? This is results of the visual preference survey. So in order of preference, number 1, 2, 3, 4 here, these are the top vote getters. This is what people liked. Kind of looking at these images are rustic character and materials. So like wood, core tin, brick, primarily 1 to 2 frontages with third floors that are subordinate or kind of pushed back or less obtrusive, smaller building footprints, a mix of roof styles. What people disliked, so the least vote getters in order were 5, 6, 7, 8 here. So what I gleaned from this is modern box-like buildings, kind of the top 2, 5 and 6. Those are boxy, more modern. And then large footprint buildings, 7 and 8 are these larger kind of block scale developments with lots of modulation. So very complex, larger structures.
And Cheney, when you talk about the third floor being sort of pushed back, yeah, so that's kind of like in picture number 3 in the previous slide than what you have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or this
there.
one where it's a
Two.
mix of 2 and 3. That the third story, mix of this one has a pitched roof. This has a third floor, but it's a large first floor, but maybe this is a second story kind of loft situation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're kind of pushed back. So that at the street level, it feels like a 1-story building here, or it feels like a 2-story building here.
But even a third story pushback wouldn't necessarily be, would it be possible with our 35-foot limit?
Yes, for a flat roof building. So then when we get into the massing, this diagram, if you'll remember from the workshops we went through, and kind of the consensus that we came to from participation was you've got a 50-foot right of way right now. So on First Street, it's 50 feet from building face to building face. That's really tight. And if you add a 35-foot building, it gets to be more of a canyon feel. Not necessarily appropriate for Nederland. What we came to agreement on was if new buildings are built, we should look at a first ground floor setback. So new buildings should be placed back a little bit further. And what that does, if you're standing here at Crosscut, and if I had all the models, you could see the way it moves. But just by setting back the building, it creates less of a mass. And then also looking at that third floor, either stepping back or looking at also people like the opportunity to have pitched roofs. which you could not do with 35 feet. That's a little too shrimpy for a pitched roof 3-story building. But there was general agreement on, yes, you could maybe go above 35 feet if it's a pitched roof. And then 35 feet max for the flat roof build structures. So we still need to work through that. These are just recommendations at this point, but it could be how height is measured. It could be 35 feet is still the maximum, but for a pitched roof building, it goes to the center of the pitch, for example, something like that.
Okay. And but then at that pitch roof, like you were saying, it'd have to be higher than 35 feet.
For 3 stories.
Yeah, to get,
stories.
really to be usable.
Thanks.
And just a couple more slides here. So then the recreation tourism placemaking, this is the diagram kind of summarizing that. We're talking about redesigning First Street as a flexible market street. We're talking about lighting downtown, not annoyingly. I know it's Netherlands, still within character, but like you have no lights. So we have mapped some priority areas for lighting. We've got called out some opportunities for small plazas and picnic areas. And then this idea, which has been floated before, but now it's on a map and now it has recommendations tied to it, is to create a downtown interpretive loop that links into the creek loop and creates opportunities for recreation, and it could have historic kiosks and things throughout that loop. For First Street, this is what we've kind of focused on. And again, this is from the highway to Snyder Street. We showed a variety of different street sections. This was the preferred section, is that you basically keep First Street the way it is today with one-way eastbound and then diagonal parking to maximize parking. And then you can see here, this is the old building line, if you will, or the existing building line. Any new buildings would have to be set back. So that creates a wider sidewalk where you can actually have outdoor dining. You can add lighting, banners, things like that to the space to give it some identity. And then very overwhelmingly approved was the idea that First Street should become a festival space. Lots of people actually preferred that it was probably split about half and half, saying keep it pedestrian all the time versus some saying still allow vehicles. My professional opinion would be to maintain it as a flexible street where you can have cars drive on it, but it has it's designed to be easily shut down for festivals, farmers markets, and other events. The reasoning is that Netherlands is in a climate where in the winter it can be slower. Doing a similar design process right now in Idaho Springs, and they're choosing for the flexible configuration because in the summer they need it to be a pedestrian mall. They need more space for pedestrians, but in the winter it's less busy. So and it's icy, and so people want to park closer to the businesses. So that would be my recommendation, but design the street so that it can be flexible. Finally is organization, partnerships, and programs. This doesn't have a pretty map to it because it's more about organizational and text-related recommendations. So exploring grants and partnerships. I just had a meeting with Miranda and Kate earlier today to talk about potential grants to go after. Really use the sub-area plan as a blueprint for your future. So the next 10 to 15 years, you're going to, this will be the future town administrator, DDA, boards and commissions can use this plan as guidance. Work closely with DDA on priority projects, those more like creating a maintenance district, parking management, helping with facade grants, potentially helping with First Street design and other improvements. So partnering with the DDI on those, updating your zoning standards to create a streamlined process, to encourage reinvestment and redevelopment, but encourage the right kind that fits in with the character of Ned. So we're trying to find a balance here. Create an ordinance to prevent properties and buildings from sitting vacant is one of those recommendations in there, and to explore the historic district potential. Finally, we have some eye candy here. So in the plan, we've got a whole model of downtown. This is draft in progress, but we'll kind of use this illustrative plan throughout to show in the plan, highlight the recommendations. And then we have specifically tied to grants that we want to go after right away. One of them is reconfiguring, redesigning the roundabout. This is a major recommendation in the transportation master plan. It's a huge gateway and identity feature of downtown Ned. And so we went ahead and created a rendering. This is a draft. It will be updated. There's already some things like the trees in the middle of the roundabout that are too tall. But anyway, this will set you up for success as you go to apply for grants and create a better proposal if you can show that ideas are already being thought out. So here are a couple views of the potential future roundabout. And I'm going to stop there. I think I've talked way too much. I will take questions. There's a lot to get through. I apologize. And some of you, this is very new. So with all of that, I'll open it up to questions now. Aid and I are available for any questions you may have.
Trustees, do you have any questions specifically for SE Group, Cheney or Aiden?
Looking cool.
Looks great.
I had a question. Like, how tightly are you guys working with the team that's doing the multimodal transportation plan? And how, I mean, I know these two projects are pretty tightly coupled, especially as far as like traffic flow and pedestrian end crossings and all that stuff.
Same group.
Parent peers, they're a subcontractor with
Yeah.
SE Group, so they're actually coupling with this to kind of bring that.
Yeah, we hired
to
the
the-
same group that did the multimodal plan that's overseeing this.
Right. What
Right,
will,
that's what it's just like how tightly
Oh,
are
cool.
they working together? That's sort of my question.
Oh, yeah, like daily emails and weekly calls.
And maybe I could just add, they're sub-consultants for one another. So they're already built into each other's contracts.
By design.
yeah. And then you're gonna be up here tomorrow for 3 different meetings. First one's housing, and then sustainability and resiliency, and then
It will be
land use and
Gabby, Caleb, and I will be up there.
okay. This is great. I mean, good visuals that definitely give us something to think about. And put together well. Thanks for, I was in those two, sub-area plan meetings, the one online and the one in here. Those were great. And it sounds like you got lots of public feedback, so appreciate that. Any other questions or comments for C Group?
Thank you. Keep up the good work. Like to see what the final recommendations are.
Yeah, so just to kind of give you an update on the overall process, because we were, while the comprehensive plan will be going through the summer, we anticipate to have a draft to you in early summer, like late June probably, that you can review all of these recommendations in detail and kind of spend a month or so reviewing those, and then we'll weave them into the comprehensive plan, and then have it all come together with the hope of adopting the downtown sub-area plan, being ready to rock and roll on that stuff by the end of summer.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. With that, we will Move on to our second informational item, the Boulder County Sheriff's Office updates. Randy, you want to introduce?
Sure, I'd love to.
Yes.
So Boulder County is here. Just kind of a reminder, we've been with Boulder County now, an official contract, a little over a year, but they supported us as extra duty prior to that. And so we've had a great relationship with them. But here, just to kind of give a status update, talk about leadership transition, answer any questions you might have. The goal is to have a pretty engaging discussion, but would love to turn it over to the Boulder County team. We also have Linda Anderson, the co-responder, who's sitting in the back, but also available to answer any questions or provide updates. Would love to share some great news about her, though, before we're done with this item.
I'll start. My name's Jason. Is this working? All right, great. My name's Jason Okers. I'm the Operations Division Chief for the Sheriff's Office, and that includes patrol and contract towns like Nederland. So I wanted to attend just to answer any questions that you may have. In addition to that, Josh Bonafide is online. Josh is a commander that oversees ASA's position, or Jen, the new Netherlands Sergeant's position. So really, I wanted to be here to see if you had any questions about the transition or anything else generally with the Sheriff's Office. I think ASA can probably talk a lot about daily operations, Netherlands specific things.
I'll start. Just really appreciate having you guys up here, and as much as I wish I hadn't had to call you guys Friday night, but your officer did a great job dealing with Saturday night's little car accident in the visitors parking lot where my brand new car lost its front end. But you guys did a great job, and really appreciative of having you guys up here.
It's always good to hear. Thank you.
I think at one point, a couple of months ago, we were talking about, the deputies on duty for traffic control. And because some of it was front loaded at the beginning of the year, and then it was going to kind of get tapered throughout the rest of the year. Kind of an update on where things are with that. And also maybe even prioritize some of those off duty or those on-call hours for like events or something that we might have. Do you recall that conversation? Yeah.
So can't remember the exact budget we were given, but I believe it was $60,000 for extra duty traffic for the year. And that does not include the extra duty officers responding to calls and doing anything like that. The first month, which was January, we had 17 people work shifts. And then speaking with Miranda, that wasn't going to be sustainable throughout the year, and we would have run out of money. So what we did was then we cut it down to 10 shifts per month maximum. Luckily for Nederland, in my mind, and being the supervisor, those have all been filled, and actually more people requesting to work them than vacancies.
Cool.
Town of Lyons and Superior are now changing how they're requesting extra duty because Nederland is taking the deputies away from Lyons and Superior to come up here and work, which is a big bonus for me and hopefully the community as well.
Mm-hmm.
Briefly talked to Nikki probably a month ago when we went over the event schedule about what would be necessary to staff events in town. The biggest part of that is when is it the town's responsibility and when is it the responsibility of the group hosting the event?
Sure.
My mind, if someone is putting on an event that they are attempting to earn money at, that should not be on the town to pay for the sheriff's office to staff extra people. That should be on the event organizer. Speaking with Nikki, most people hire security if they're serving alcohol. I offered the sheriff's office as an option if that's what would be a better solution. And we would coordinate that through the extra duty coordinator to get those positions filled. If it's a town event, I'm blanking on what any of those would be, but maybe a town-sponsored parade or something along those lines. An example is Lions. They have a set budget every year of what extra duty is. They really want park enforcement in the summer for their major parks, which are Bone Park and Laverne Johnson. They have a lot of traffic, a lot of people barbecuing. The river there is a high safety concern, so they want deputies in the park, not responding to calls. So part of the budget Sergeant Sears has to manage is making sure people are in the parks during the high times, as well as keeping enough money in his budget to do the Christmas parade at the end of the year. Those are town functions, so the town's paying for them. As far as I know, most of the stuff in Nederland is outside entities wanting to come in and have an event, so that would be on them.
So
The way-
in Lions, does Planet Bluegrass pay for extra duty then?
So
festival?
the major events at Planet Bluegrass, which are Rocky Grass, and I'm currently blanking on the other one, but the large music festivals,
Folk Festival?
Folk Fest. Planet Bluegrass is reaching out and they are footing the bill for traffic control and foot patrols within the park themselves. With the budget, keeping it at 10 shifts per month, that should be able to get us through the end of the year, maintaining that same traffic cycle if there's no other events the town would want us for.
Okay.
We're not on to budget, but my recommendation for next year is to bump it up by 33% to $90,000 for the traffic enforcement. And then thinking of increases to employee salaries, vehicle maintenance, fuel costs, adding another 10%. So the initial request would be for $100,000 next year for traffic enforcement.
And the reason for that is we
More
don't feel like,
visibility.
we don't feel like we're getting in, we're not visible enough from a traffic standpoint.
So if you guys are ready for the traffic breakdown, I can go over that right now.
Sure.
I guess one thing I wonder about is once we're fully staffed with deputies, you still would think that extra coverage is needed at the third more?
Correct. So, and that's if you guys want to follow the Lions and Superior code
Mhm.
or model
Model.
would be a better word. So, we want deputies in town doing traffic enforcement when they're available. And I think it was mostly the previous board, but a lot of you are the same.
Mhm.
What Nederland wants from their deputies is community policing, to be walking and doing foot patrols, to be engaging with business owners, and to be known to the citizens. So we typically don't want them just out conducting traffic enforcement throughout their shift. There will be times where it's necessary and times where we want them out being visible to tourists and everybody coming into town to let them know we're here. But the main focus for the deputies that will be up here is community policing. Has that changed or is that what you guys are still looking for? So on that basis, in order to keep traffic safety and traffic enforcement, that would be the request to keep traffic extra duty enhanced.
So to go from like 10 shifts to about 13, 14 shifts a month.
Correct.
Just for the visibility, that's your main.
So I know we get posted a lot on Netheads and other groups that we are out and we're active. So just that alone is a good traffic safety. The biggest traffic issue we've seen since January 1st to now is Eldora. So lots of people coming up, don't know the area, maybe aren't familiar with driving on icy mountain roads, not aware of speed limits, things along those lines. And then this summer, you're going to have the people driving the Peak to Peak Highway. In the fall, you'll have the people coming up looking at the trees changing colors. So from what I've experienced, the traffic flow through town is high enough and a high enough safety that we should keep that up. My typical spot to sit is right west of East in the dirt pull off as people enter town. There's been multiple times I've made traffic stops where someone is walking a dog on the road, riding a bike on the road. So it's not only a traffic issue, it's a pedestrian safety issue in my mind.
Thanks.
Just to go over the traffic extra duty. When we do electronic summonses, it's not mandatory, but we're trying to get as close as we can. There's a checkbox that deputies can click that says Ned Extra. So the Lyons and Superior have the same, so that town boards know that those shifts are being used and useful. That is only an option on electronic summonses. So we also have deputies that write handwritten summonses. And we also have deputies that maybe forget to click the box. So the numbers I have aren't 100% accurate. And these also, for warnings, only reflect written warnings. So deputies may give a citizen a warning with a business card, and that won't be noted in any of the stats I have. So it seems like our discretion is very low in this based on the amount of tickets written and warnings given. But in reality, the discretion is a lot higher and there are more warnings than I'm accounting for. Because if I make a traffic stop and I just hand someone a business card and give them a warning about it, I don't have a way of documenting that on here.
Okay. And then last question, and Miranda might have to need your help on this one. One of the reasons why, the previous board had approved the traffic stop allocation was because there was going to be an offsetting potentially from like the traffic tickets written, correct? Do we have an idea or an understanding of what that offset is at this point?
You're gonna have to give me a second. and I'll-
Yeah, sorry, I just came up with it.
Fine.
If I had thought about it before the
So
meeting, I would have
I-
prepped it.
I could do quick math and get us close. So since I ran a report today from January 1st until today. Since January 1st, we have written 269 summonses, 269 traffic stops utilizing the Ned Extra Duty checkbox. With that, we have 260 summonses issued, 9 warnings, and those are just written warnings. Those don't count the verbal warnings. Overall, if I go just to Nederland tickets using the electronic system, we have 530 traffic stops, 482 summonses, and that's 48 warnings. I got an email from our clerk who enters tickets. There's currently 18. She has not entered into the system yet. That does not say if they're summonses or warnings. And then at a very quick glance, trying to figure out our new report writing system, it appears we have approximately 150 to 200 handwritten summonses. Out of those summonses, the majority are 10 to 19 over the speed limit, which in Nederland is a $165 fine. $52 of those are people being written for 20 to 25 miles an hour over. That's $225. And then 9 are 25 to 39 miles an hour over. And then there's also multiple reckless drivings. I remember one of those specifically, I pulled the person over, they were going 60 in the 25. So I'll do a quick average on the cost unless Miranda has it.
No, I mean, I don't have access to our accounting software from here, but
Sure.
I think just some data that might be helpful is so expenditures year to date as of April, we've expended 364,000. And that of course is not just BCSO, that includes Troy's salary and a couple other things. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think just from maybe, to offset to your point, revenue has been 86,000, where this time last year we were at 41,000. And so we're twice as much revenue that does offset this contract. And we've budgeted total revenue of 110 and we're already at 86.
And that's revenue specifically from
The
sheriff-
traffic stops. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, variety of municipal fines, but primarily speeding tickets and traffic citations.
So, and I think it's important to note, you guys were very clear that the intent of traffic was not a revenue generator.
Correct.
We could 100% write double this amount of tickets.
That's
Um,
interesting.
I would gander a guess that a majority of these 10 to 19 tickets over, maybe 20%, are being knocked down at the deputy's discretion from 20 to 25 over. There are only 2 on this list, but 5 to 9 over. I guarantee you our deputies did not stop people at 5 to 9 over, and they are giving them a break. So there's no exact magic number. Every deputy has their different number of what they'll stop somebody for. But in a 25-mile-an-hour zone, 15 miles an hour over is a very high percentage of the speed limit, and is a very safe and defendable stop, and can be a safety concern when you have people walking, other cars coming, people trying to get up off the hill from East Street onto 119. So I think as a traffic safety issue, the fact that we've made almost 700 traffic stops in 5 months now, shows that there is a traffic safety problem. And I don't think this is a resident issue. There are residents who have been stopped and been issued citations, but a majority of it is the people rushing to get to Eldora, rushing to get to Peak Highway, and just not understanding that you're coming into a town that is a residential area and with foot traffic, and that the speed limits are clearly posted for a safety reason.
And they taper down, it's like, but it's hard to explain. It's like, it's not a gotcha. I mean, you were told at 35, 25.
And then even coming out of town, there's 3 speed limit signs that are 25 miles an hour before East Street. There's no excuse.
And correct me if I'm wrong. In my time, I was told that those 25-mile-an-hour signs are actually larger than your average. I mean, I don't know. This is what I was told when I was at Net PD.
I can go get a tape measure and let you know.
No, that's okay. Don't.
I actually want to know. Cool.
Ty, I think you have to go do
Probably
that
have a tape measure.
We don't want to pay them to do it.
Okay, I'll go do it. Expect a report here. All right.
Actually, that would be hilarious.
Well, now I'm gonna.
Okay. But I would say these were all the things that we debated. I mean, originally it was going to be speed cameras because it's like, wait a second, it seems like this is a huge safety concern. There was some pushback on speed cameras. And so we said, okay, we'll put real people there and it's going to be double, triple the amount of what the ticket's going to be. But I think if anything, what we've heard from you is like, this is a real concern. It's a real safety concern in this little stretch, on both ends.
And I think Christopher had mentioned it earlier about how the deputies treated him. Out of these 700 approximately stops, I've received 2 complaints.
Yeah.
So even when people are receiving summonses, a lot of times they're telling the deputy, thank you. So.
I'd love to see some of this data go into our multimodal transportation safety, as we talk about the traffic flow, just, looking at, I don't know if they were literally talking about putting roundabouts there at that intersection of East Street, but, I'd love to see the input from you guys come into that.
So would that be, so in the BOT document, I break it down to all calls for service, and then traffic. And that just shows how many stops and summonses. I don't know with the program we're currently using, if I'd be able to pull speeds, but is that what you'd be interested in? How fast people were going?
We have gotten it.
Speed.
Yeah.
Pulled that data and gave it. So we've actually already given this data to the multimodal transportation team, Fear and Peers, because Troy was able to calculate based off tickets, speeds. I think he handed it, but yeah. Nonetheless, it happened. So the data was already given. I mean, we could give them more up to date data, but I think you're seeing the same trend.
Yeah.
Kind of regardless. And so they do know and have all this information.
Well, that's great.
One of the theories we had, because, some trustees were like, well, there's no crash data. There's no crash data along that stretch. Is there really a safety concern? And yet the traffic circle itself has a lot of crash data. And so one of the theories is that people were just coming in so hot and, then going into the traffic circle and potentially, but we didn't have any data to justify that, nor did we have any data to suggest that that stretch really was a safety concern other than residents watching 60-mile-per-hour cars going past day in and day out. So I don't know if there's anything else you would say to that.
I can't remember the traffic accident numbers exactly. Before we adopted the Nederland traffic code, those were all being done on state summonses, so I was having trouble organizing it. It seems right now that we're having maybe 4 to 6 traffic accidents a month. I don't know if that's accurate. That's just what I'm remembering off the top of my head.
Are they clustering in certain areas?
Roundabout is the number one. The last one we had was a car that rolled into the fire station this weekend. So really had nothing to do with the traffic. They neglected to put on their parking brake and the car rolled. So that status goes in there as well. So there are those anomalies we would need to take out. But I would say the major issues for the traffic accidents up here are speed and then road conditions. When it's snowy, people are sliding around.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting, and this is something we can follow up later, to look at before we had the traffic, officers and then post-traffic officers, and whether or not we saw any type of decline in the crashes within the traffic circle. Maybe it's not correlated or anything, but it still would be kind of interesting data.
I will try to figure out how to do that.
Okay. I know. Clean data.
I have a suggestion. This is Tanya about the traffic circle. I've noticed that the yield to the left sign is kind of behind where a person would stop to try to get into the circle. And it would be really helpful to have those yield to the left sign actually in the circle where those arrows are. I think there's a lot of confusion.
And
for
larger.
people. Yeah, large and
larger
small.
font.
And like when you're actually queuing in to go in there, it's behind you. So you don't even read it. And that I think just that's part of it because
We should make sure that's on the
that's not on the
multimodal.
sheriff. That's not on us. It's on CDOT. And somehow we have to request it.
Well-
With fair, like the people doing the transportation, like give them that feedback and then from that we can escalate it. to
Yeah,
CDOT.
because if they can build it into the simulation or the model and show that, I think that's just a more powerful visual. Are they still on? No, they got off.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. We'll see them tomorrow.
Any more questions or comments? Lisa, on this?
I had one. So I don't know if this is more a question for Miranda or staff versus you guys, but what would we need to do to increase our agreement for overnight coverage? So that we have more, we have at least one full-time.
I'll take it first and then I'll turn it over to you. So I think you would need to amend your contract and you need to do a supplemental budget. However, just because you want to do that doesn't mean BCSO has the capacity to staff it. And so I think that's really an important kind of message here. And that's what I'll turn it back over to you is we actually met and we talked about it. So from Chief Schmidtman's email, we talked, myself, Chief Schmidtman and Sergeant Merriam about, what can we do here and what are options, and recognizing that there was always a higher staffing level on the table, but it's challenging for them to provide staffing. So kind of my cautionary tale is like, till you're fully staffed, even under this contract, any sort of amendment could create challenges. But I think, and if Chief Schmidtman and Sergeant Merriam want to talk about it, I think they kind of talked about what are better ways in which nighttime deputies can show up in some of these calls, and how can there be arrangements made to ensure that even though we have the 50-50 coverage, we're providing adequate support to Chief Schmidtman and his team. So that's kind of the long and short of it. It's like, sure, it's doable from a supplemental budget contract amendment, but is it doable from staffing? So I'll turn it over to you.
And maybe answer the question of when we'll be fully staffed.
I can't. Thank you. And actually I was prepared for that and I forgot earlier. So as Miranda said, it's been about a year since you entered into the contract. So we hired some deputies, sent them to an academy, and those deputies are scheduled to be completing their field training in mid-June. So our intent is not to put the new deputies up here, but to actually put some people that already work in the mountains and are just kind of familiar with the community. So those new deputies will be working down on the flats somewhere. So full-time day shift officers, mid-June-ish. That's what we're projecting. I mean, obviously what I've learned in my time here is our staffing is always very fluid. It changes, but we're less than a month out and that's what it's looking like. So I'm optimistic. And hiring new deputies, it's certainly doable for us. One of the challenges that we have is we wanted to send 6 employees to a police academy that starts in August. We started with, I think it was 71 or 81 applicants through people that just didn't show up, failed written tests, failed background, psychological, drug tests, stuff like that. Right now we have 6 people that are still going through the process. And out of those 6, I mean, there's still some that are in background checks and we may find something that would prohibit them from working for us. So hiring new employees is a difficult thing. And I think it's difficult for law enforcement agencies around the state and really around the country from what I've heard. So if you say we want to hire somebody right now, probably best case scenario, just with academy schedules and everything. I mean, it's next fall, maybe. We are hiring laterals, so those are kind of hit and miss. Kind of the same thing. You get a lateral that has worked for 3 or 4 different law enforcement agencies in 4 years. A lot of times we don't even invite them to test with us, recognizing that there is a pattern of problems there, and we don't want to take on that problem because it could have really negative consequences. So that's kind of the staffing in really high level. Any questions about that?
Well, just like, so given the current staffing, assuming, you got at least some of your 6 people come on board, I mean, does that give us any option for additional overnight coverage or are we?
So I guess I'd probably have to look. I wasn't prepared for that question. And what I don't want to say struggle with. I mean, I know that we have some people that are retiring this year, so we've got 2 laterals that are starting next month. If we get those 6 on, and I think we still have 4 vacant positions. Plus we'd have potentially 8 people in training. So they wouldn't even be out of the 6 that are starting an academy. They wouldn't finish their training until this time next year. And a lot happens in a year, unfortunately. So that doesn't help. It doesn't answer your question, but I can't answer it because there's a lot of variables.
It sounds like if we were to summarize like a time frame, it's like a 5 to maybe 9 month process from when we say, hey, we'd like extra duty or additional, folks. It's a 5 to 9 month process for you to get those people realistically.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah.
If we put them through an academy, it's really about a year.
It's about a year. Yeah. 5 would be like, oh, you've already identified folks that are already going through and like you're 6 now, but
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions? Comments?
Yeah, this is Tanya. I just had a question about when new officers come in, what sort of training are they getting regarding like the laws and codes in Netherlands that might vary from other towns so that when they respond to calls, they're aware of what is and isn't an actual violation?
So once Netherlands fully up and running, and by that I mean the sheriff's office up here, when people are going through the FTO program, which is the field training program, they're required to spend time in Lyons, Superior, and Nederland to understand the municipal codes. Within none of the municipal codes is anything outside of state law. So when responding to crimes or calls for service, every person who's been through the police academy and through the what we call MAGMA, which is our in-house training, that's a scenario-based training. They're always aware of what the state violation may be. Where you start hitting in municipal issues is, so us being county, a lot of times it's legal to discharge a firearm on your property as long as you're doing safely, in a safe manner with a safe backdrop, things like that. The municipalities have different rules on that, or municipal violations. So you can't discharge a firearm within town limits. So as the deputies are going through that MAGMA training and field training, they spend time in each municipality going over the specific municipal laws. Luckily, you guys are not much different than Lyons and Superior, and probably not much different than Longmont and Boulder. A lot of municipal codes are very similar. There are specific nuances to each one. So right now with the extra duty deputies, after I got the municipal code from Troy and Miranda, that was distributed to the deputies who work up here. I'll be honest, they don't know it 100% inside and out. They know if it's a state law violation, and if they're not sure, they'll go check the book and they will tell the person they're not sure. A couple differences are, when is a theft, a municipal theft, and I charge it within the municipality, or has it become a state charge? If that makes sense. And that's based on levels of the items taken. When we get deputies up here full-time, so hopefully mid-June, one of the requirements for them is going to be to go through the municipal code book and know what the municipal codes are. An example of our night shift deputies are Conrad and Cantwell. They know the municipal code. They know what can be enforced, what can't be within that, and then where to move forward with that process. So I guess the short answer is deputies who are assigned to Nederland will know the municipal code.
Okay, great. Thank you. Would it be helpful if the town provided like a little cheat sheet or something that, or to make, because the code can be kind of long and, or like, what would you recommend? Just have them read it and study it?
So luckily, every deputy has downtime throughout the day. So we do have a cheat sheet that very quickly summarizes the municipal code violation. And then by going to the website, it gives a full dissertation of the specific language. And with municipal violations, it's never what we would call an exigent circumstance. So whether that's a barking dog or a harassment, the deputy may respond initially to calm down whatever's going on. They can gather the reporting party's information, the possible suspect or involved party's information, and they can go make sure that they have the correct municipal ordinance and then come back and come to a final resolution later.
Okay.
If it's a health safety issue, that will take priority and probably will rise above the level of any municipal ordinances, but anything municipally, we have time to make sure we get it correct, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Real quick, the folks that, in mid-June, you'll be getting, we'll start with deputies that are already experienced in the department. And is there like a amount of time you expect they'll stay here as deputies until we kind of start switching around, or what are you thinking?
Leo, are you in the house? Okay, just see if you're home.
So yeah, so the deputies
Leo's home.
that'll start working full-time in Nederland in mid-June. They're experienced deputies, already working in the mountains. I don't know their names right off the top of my head, but already familiar with the area, probably already familiar with the municipal code. As far as how long they're going to stay. So typically we do our shift bids annually, and we rotate shifts in January, into January.
Okay.
What I have, I guess, kind of anecdotally seen with Nederland is that people want to be up here. Not everybody, but we have a group of people that want to work here. So I would imagine that they'll get up here and probably want to stay up here.
Okay.
There's certainly going to be days though where maybe they have to go to firearms training or something else. So you're going to have a fill-in.
Sure.
But generally speaking, we'll have the same deputies.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Since Chief Schmidtman does have some things he wants to say,
Yeah.
I know there's no public.
No, that's right.
Okay, but I told him to come up here.
Yes, I'm glad.
All right. Hi, as some of you know, I'm Charlie Schmidtman. I'm the chief of the Nederland Fire Protection District. So I just wanted to kind of give my 2 cents on the coverage for the town of Nederland and the surrounding area. So, you know, our big concerns obviously is the community. My other greatest concern is my staff and the volunteers that work with us. And so the big things that we see as gaps in the coverage can be anything small, like there's not an officer in the area when we go on a medical call, and that may or may not be okay. But when we respond on a medical call and that call goes sideways, the person has some type of mental health problem breakdown, they attack one of our volunteers, and then we hear that, you know, our closest deputy is 30 minutes out. That's a problem for me. You know, I want to make sure that our volunteers who are community members, they're paying to volunteer with our agency essentially, they're getting the protection that they really need to. Am I asking to have an officer on every call? Absolutely not. But what I do need is I do need to feel secure enough that the officers are going to be close by, that they can respond if we are in need. You know, the other part of this is, you know, when we have some type of violent call, whether it's a domestic violence or a stabbing, a shooting, an assault, something along those lines, and our officer is again far away, whether they're, you know, at the headquarters, they're Allens Park, because, you know, they're still meeting the requirements of the contract that the town has set, that, you know, they only need to be in town 50% of the time after 6 p.m. You know, we're waiting to render help to those citizens who have been related to that crime. And so again, we're not going to go into a dangerous situation, putting our volunteers and our staff in risk. And it's really hard on us to sit there, basically sitting on our hands, waiting for an officer to secure the scene while we hear this person's bleeding to death, they're still being attacked, they're, you know, whatever the issue is. So for us, I'd really love to see more coverage, swing shift like, and I've had that conversation with you in the past, that it's hard to staff a swing shift, or if you have the staffing for the swing shift, that deputy goes on vacation or something along those lines, that it's hard to get that coverage. But I think it's really important that we see some firm coverage at least until 2 a.m. I mean, that's been historic NED coverage, and that worked really well in the past. So that's something that I would really like to see brought back. Even if we only have to have one deputy, you know, one deputy and maybe the sergeant on during the daytime. There's any questions for me? I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, I'll sit down. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
So I'll
Makes
just
sense.
respond to what Chief was talking about through our conversation. Town of Superior had a swing shift deputy, and I'd say approximately 7 or 8 years ago, when the sheriff's office was more fully staffed, we did have a swing shift as well. As COVID and everything else came about, and we started having staffing shortages, we had to get rid of the swing shift just to maintain 24 hours coverage. So the problem with swing shift, because we don't currently have a swing shift for regular patrol, if Nederland was to pay for a swing shift deputy, and as Chief said, it's a great idea, and it would be perfect for coverage. It would help cover as day shift deputy was in training or if the day shift deputy had to make an arrest and was out of town at the jail for a couple hours, if the day shift deputy has a court they need to respond to, anything that pulls them out of town while still on duty, the swing shift deputy would be able to cover that. However, because we don't have swing shift staffing, if that swing shift deputy went on vacation or was at training or court, Nederland would be covering that full salary and that position would not be backfilled. So that was the biggest issue I talked about with Chief, was it would be awesome if we could have it. It'd be awesome if the town could afford it. But fiscally, it's not super responsible because the sheriff's office has no way to backfill it for you guys. So Superior did have that for the previous 4 or 5 years. And they're moving away from that swing shift deputy. And they are adding an additional deputy to each night shift, which has the backfill coverage because they are 100% coverage at night. So they saw that it was a beneficial position, but that would be more beneficial to get the 2 full-time night shift people and not have that swing shift coverage.
Okay, yeah, so just to clarify, they're just at 100% night shift,
Correct.
night coverage. Yeah.
They currently have 100% night shift deputy, and they have requested 2 night shift deputies for each shift, so 4 total for nights. So 2, I'm not very good at explaining this, 4 total, but it'd be 2 every day that they're paying for full-time. I also agree that 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. is typically the highest call volume. And I know our night shift deputies would try to start in Nederland. They come up Boulder Canyon. And then once they're done in town, they can move, north. Specifically going back to Cantwell again, she loves Nederland. She spends more than 50% of her time in town. And then the front side of the week with Conrad, I don't know if you guys know Josh Follett. He used to be a Nederland marshal, and he's now one of our mountain deputies. He's assigned to mountains, and Mason Conrad is assigned to Nederland for 50% of the night. When Follett has reports to do, he does not go to Allens Park. He comes to Nederland to do them. So on that shift, there's actually additional coverage within town because Josh knows the town and he likes being here. So there are times where the town is getting more than 50%, and that's because the deputies want to be here.
Does your data suggest, like, because obviously you're covering all of Boulder County, does your data suggest that there are pockets that need more attention, or do you have that data?
So we're actually doing probably about every 2 years or so, we do a kind of a staffing survey, and we look at the calls for service in the county, kind of heat maps. Are we staffed appropriately to meet those calls of service? And then we also look at kind of a relief factor. So I think right now, to be honest, I would love to go up, but probably a deputy per shift for the county as a whole, just to meet the call load. But I don't have the numbers to support that yet. But I think that's where we're going to end up in the future. And I'll agree with Charlie. I mean, I think that the safety of the community, the safety of the firefighters is paramount. And certainly there's times where we're half an hour away, probably more sometimes. And I can't address specific instances, but I'm sure that happens. And if you're interested, we can get the kind of the calls for service to Nederland, and then you can look at that and say,
we, based on these calls, we want more officers. You know, we can look at the time committed for the officers, and we can kind of break it down hour by hour. So you may say, you may see that on Thursdays, and we break it down by days of the week as well, that there's no calls between, you know, 10 PM and 2 AM. But maybe Friday's really busy, and maybe Wednesday's a really busy day. And if there's really kind of no rhyme or reason for some of it. So you just have to look at that and say, you know what, based on these numbers, we want to see another officer in town. Or you don't, because you're going to say there's 2 calls per shift, and that seems crazy to hire a deputy for 2 calls per shift in town.
Right. Yeah, it'd be great to get that data when it's available.
So we can get that for you. I can't promise it'll be tomorrow. But
Yeah, sure.
certainly somebody to explain it to you. I'm sure Jen can help with it all.
Yeah.
And I'll say, I mean, the kind of the staffing model that you want, I mean, that's your decision. I mean, it's your town. If you say we want 5 deputies every night, then we can work towards 5 deputies every night.
Just one more point on that data that you're requesting. When you do break down the data, are you breaking it down by Nederland city limits or by sort of the Nederland Fire Protection District or the Nederland zip code? Or both, or all of the above?
I'll say yes. So we can, typically we don't focus necessarily on a fire department, just because that's kind of outside of our area, if you will, but we can break it down by specific addresses within the town with zip codes. So I mean, we can really break it down almost any way you want. Typically, we break it down by address. And we don't get specific and say at 123 Main Street, we've got 5 calls, but you're going to just start seeing maybe like a heat map. Or we can just say, we want the really smart people, they've got a map and they can say, give me all of the calls for service within this geographic boundary.
I guess I'm just looking at, you know, the number of calls that are from the town of Nederland versus Western Boulder County.
Yeah.
Part of Nederland.
Yep. Yeah. So
See
we
that
would,
you know, see if there's any discrepancy there. And
yeah. So we would see discrepancy, or you would be able to break those up. And I think that really from a pure, what I recall from past surveys is from a pure call for service standpoint, and you're looking at just minutes of workload, you know, the mountains outside of Nederland, they really just support 1 deputy at night. And we've recognized that we would like 2 up here, because if your cover is 45 minutes away and you're rolling around in the ditch with somebody, we want somebody there faster than 45 minutes. So we've kind of upstaffed it a little bit, recognizing that's because of the geography, we want more people here.
And I think the biggest issue is for calls beyond 10 PM. You can get the barking dog call, but you're not getting the theft, the identity theft, the more prototypical day shift calls. It's typically an active call. And what Charlie was saying, you know, if they're on an assault or something along those lines, it's very hard when you're sitting there wanting to help and your hands are tied. So it would be great to have full-time coverage up here at night. But as our staffing and your guys' finances are, it's just not feasible. And with that 50% staffing, we can't mandate that deputies not respond to other calls for service outside of town limits, or you can go 15 minutes away. Now, if they were subject to being town of Nederland deputies, that would be more plausible. But if there's an emergency in Allen's Park or 4 Mile Canyon, they're going to have to respond to that and get back to Nederland at a later time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the struggle with night shift. You're not nearly as busy, but when you get a call, it's typically an in-progress call where somebody needs help. And that could even be, you know, someone having a pure medical issue that's not a law enforcement issue. But that's a lot of times to what people are responding to. It's someone's calling at 2 a.m. because they need help right now.
I have a bit of follow-on question to what Christopher was asking, of just like what is our service area in the contract? And this is just because I don't know exactly, but are we defined to town limits, or do we include Ridge Road and Big Spring or Cold Springs? Like, what is Nederland for our?
So for the town deputies, it's town limits. And then if they are given a call for service, and this is usually an active call for service, and this is how the Nederland Marshal's Office assisted Boulder County when they were here. There's a 7-mile radius around town limits. So for instance, if I was working in town and there was a fire burning in Western Magnolia, unattended campfire during a fire ban, I would respond to that call, even being the Nederland assigned deputy, because that's a large safety concern. If there was a traffic complaint on Coal Creek Canyon, I'm not going to respond to that. We can wait for the mountain officer to go to that. But within the 7-mile radius, if it's a public safety risk, the deputies will respond. And then when they are done dealing with that, they will return to town limits. And then on that, deputies are not going to be doing active patrols. So, and there will be times they leave town limits, driving outside of town limits to get to the ice rink or to School Road or something along those lines. They may be out of town for a few minutes here and there, or driving down Ridge Road to get out to Peak to come back into town, but they'll be within close proximity to town limits.
So if a deputy gets called away to, say, West Mag for a fire or town of Eldora for something, and it looks like they're going to be there a while, does the sheriff's office send someone up to be in town?
No, they would. So let's use the fire, for example, or domestic violence in Eldora. They would respond as in the domestic violence, they wouldn't be the initially dispatched deputy. So even if they got there first, the other deputy that arrived would be maybe a case agent or in charge of that call. And that once everything was taken care of, the Nederland deputy would respond back to Nederland to complete any supplemental reports there and be in town.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Sheriff's Office?
Yeah, this is Tanya. I have a question about our contract. Is there like a time of year where we renegotiate it? Could we put less during the day and more at that swing shift period that you were talking about earlier? Or is you can't like move the hours around when you have the officers based on the data after we get the data reports? Or does that make sense, my question? So once we get the data reports, say it shows that we have more calls between the hours of, 6 and 2 a.m. than we do from the hours of 8 a.m. and noon. Could we ask those officers to just show up later and push it back into the morning hours, early morning hours, or no?
So what we struggle with there, and probably the problem would be if, I think typically our deputies, let's just say we wanted to, I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. So if we wanted the deputies assigned to day shift Nederland to work from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., we can do that. However, the rest of day shift works from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So as soon as a Nederland deputy wanted to take a day off, we could backfill them with the day shift deputy that would work from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., but then there would be a gap with no service from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Well, I got an idea, and
Thank you.
I'm not pushing for this, but just throwing it out there. So say we flipped, and just took, because say we just keep it at 6 to 6 to 6 to 6, and instead of one of those daytime deputies, we were in contract to move that instead to increase we'd basically be increasing the nighttime, the 6 to 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., and decreasing the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we'd stay on the department's shift, but we'd have an extra person in that 6 to 2 window now that we don't.
Yep.
So we'd be 100% coverage
100% coverage at night and then like
and
50.
go to 50.
50% during the day.
And I'll say, I think that's probably your decision. And then we can flip flop that. If that's what you'd want. I would encourage you to look at the calls for service and just see where you want the people, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for me, it was just more like, if we do feel like, supporting the fire department and having that 6 to 2 coverage, so someone's always available, that might be a way we can afford to do that if the data shows that the daytime is more casual.
Yeah. And without looking at the numbers, what I would expect to see is that you're going to be paying a cop to sit around and do nothing in town for 4 hours from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., which is fine. I mean, if that's what you want, but
Let's
so
see
you
what the
just have
data
to-
says.
You have to balance that out.
It's just an idea.
Well, and I think maybe Tanya's question too included, like, can we do that? Can we make that request change anytime? Or is that something we can only do once a year? or
For
something?
like the shift change?
Yeah, if we wanted to say, hey, we want 2 officers at night.
We could probably make that change. That would, I think, would be an easy change because we'd essentially just be shifting resources around, if that makes sense. If you wanted to start talking about different shifts, that would probably be a greater challenge because then we start messing with people's family lives, their time off and.
Well, you mean the weird shift, like.
Yeah.
Swing shift.
Yeah, or 2 to 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of thinking, just stay on the department's shift schedule. If we were to do this, I'm not that sure. But stay in the department's shift level, so it's kind of not as disruptive to Boulder County Sheriff's Office, but gives the fire department what they're looking for and maybe covers us when we need it more. And if that person gets kicked back for 4 hours for them.
Yeah, no, and again.
Might be incentive to.
I mean, if you say this is what we want, I mean, then we can do that, but then the people awake during the day in town are the ones that wouldn't have the deputy to respond necessarily. But again, I think it's probably your decision. We can certainly say, this is what we would do when it's that time, but I would look at kind of the data. And we can pull data. I think typically we go back 5 years. So you'll be able to look at 5 years worth of data and say, hey, this is what we're seeing. Typically we throw out 2020 just because of COVID and kind of some of those effects. Although I suspect there was probably a big increase in traffic up here because of all the people that discovered the mountains.
Big time.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just, anyways, just things to think about. Because if we end up with extra coverage or increase that, we have sheriffs around town during the day, which are the ticketing hours, so just something to think about. We'll have to decide on that tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks. Appreciate it. Any more questions or comments? Well, thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate your time. Definitely. Okay. Well, with that, we're gonna.
I would like to
Good
get
thing you're stretching.
a co-responders. Thank you, Nikki.
Oh, yes.
Lynette Anderson in the back of the room here with us. I mentioned to a few of you before, Lynette is grant funded through a peace officer mental health grant that was set to end in June. And we advocated and fought and communicated and did all the things and are happy to report that we did receive the extension for Annette's grant, which will allow us to exhaust the contract. So because we started so late, we had money left in the contract. And so it was like, please just give it to us. But it was quite the journey to get them to say yes, but happy to report it was circulated. So Lynette is now fully funded through November. Lynette is incredible. I can't say, she's just absolutely incredible. She is there for our community members who are struggling with mental health or support needs. She's there for us as staff as we are learning to navigate these. Huge support to Boulder County goes on with them. Just saw her today with an individual and Boulder County Sheriff's Office. Her care, her compassion, her knowledge of our community, she is such a vital asset to us. And so not only am I thrilled that we were able to extend, I just really want to kind of put the bug in your ear though, that letting the funding expire in November would be devastating. I mean, it was devastating to think it could happen now. And so obviously the new town administrator and team will need to look at alternative funding, try to get creative, but I have tentatively put it on your forecaster to maybe see if your budget is as such, can you carry her through December, at least make her whole for the year? Can you carry her a little bit longer as you look for alternative funding? But I think having a mental health co-responder has really transformed what it means to have community policing and community support. I don't think it would be the same for our community if it wasn't for Lynette being here and providing that ongoing case management, so that when individuals are in crisis, it's not just continuously calling 911 for that support. They have Lynette to call. And so just really want to encourage you to look at opportunities for continuous funding. Encourage the town administrator, I will too, but be ready that this conversation is going to come forward during budget cycle of maybe cost share. What do these things look like? But think that this should be a priority for you. So I hope that you feel similarly, but you can also find alternative means to fund it.
You remind me, what was the grant that funded?
Peace Officer Mental Health Grant, and we did apply again for funding, but we're told when we applied it was unlikely they were going to continue to fund co-responders, and that became true. They denied the grant, saying that they wanted to utilize it for, different programs, more unique programs. Co-responders is a pretty stabilized service, so it's, for DOLA's opinion, municipalities, law enforcement agencies should really be looking at how to start funding these yourselves. And this grant is meant for kind of alternative mental health supports. And so it's no longer a viable funding mechanism for co-responders, and we have yet to find a new one, but really think that's kind of one area to hit hard, is how to secure ongoing funding.
Yeah, so with the new town administrator and ourselves, we just have to remember, we'll either need to budget through, talk with Rita, see if we have the money in budget for December, and at the same time be chasing grants actively. We put it on the agenda for September to start talking about this to secure funding into the future.
Yeah, and our partners down at Boulder County, who do run the co-responders, historically have been able to help us look for grants, don't really have the capacity at this time. And so really kind of just said, like, we need to work together here, where before I just kind of relied on them to kick me a grant. And so we need to take the more proactive stance. Did clue in Jamie Boyle from Gilpin. They've got a co-responder. I think they fund it themselves, but just like keep her eye out for grants since they have a grants manager. And just kind of ask everyone in our network, and Lynette included, everyone just keep their eye out for possible funding. And even if it's partial, just get creative here to keep this ongoing. And I just want to thank Lynette for all she does for our community, because it's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Lynette. Appreciate it. Well, with that, we'll go to our next information item, which is our state of the. Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Boulder County, for all you do.
State of the town address.
All right. State of the town address. Y'all didn't want to stay for that? Come on.
Cleared the house.
We cleared the house, right? Right? I don't know where you're going. No. Right? All right. First ever, I think, state of the town address. And so you all had asked the town administrator to do this twice a year. Felt like it should happen with me, sort of a little early. The state of the town address is really meant to be an opportunity to get you all up to speed on where town staff stand on the strategic plan goals, but also have a couple other highlights. So In our agenda today, I'm going to give you a strategic plan update, as well as some additional highlights from 2024. So first, your first goal was to foster a strong organizational culture where town employees are valued and the town is the employer of choice. In this goal, there were two goals. The first was to bring every town staff to a minimum salary or hourly rate based on the compensation study that was done in July of 2023. Majority of staff were moved to their minimum last year, but you had a couple outliers being your department heads who did kind of a 50-50 split, where at the time of the compensation study, they received half and then January received their other half. So happy to report as of January 2024, every staff member is on the minimum end of their threshold. So every job had a range, every staff member is at least at the minimum. We also committed to developing professional development plans that really kind of aligned with strategic goals. It also focused on what do these employees want? How do they want to grow? These professional development plans, talk about their current performance as any annual plan does, but also has 1-year goals plus 3-year goals. So it gave us kind of insight into where does an employee want to go and how do we help them get there? So every employee has those. I reviewed all of mine with department heads quarterly. Some of these department heads are kind of doing them as needed, but there are continuous touch bases with these professional development plans, and we know how to grow employees in ways that are meaningful to them. Your second goal was to protect the town's water rights, ensuring the delivery of water to residents and businesses is continuous. Couple things. The first thing was that we were going to file our diligence application, and we did do that in February 2024. We continue to work with Denatali as well. Denatali Water is the town's water engineers, and we're evaluating alternative water storage sites. We also recently had a meeting where we looked at all of the grant funding and loan opportunities coming down the pipeline through IIJA, water conservation, Colorado Rural Water Board. There's tons of funding coming forward, and really looked at what are some viable options. Potentially one is a planning grant that Andrew Bliss may bring forward to you next month or the following. But just getting our heads around what does this funding look like and when might be the right time. Most of these are revolving and a lot of them are loans, either low interest, no interest, or forgivable loans. But just knowing what's there, and so when the time is right, we can go after the appropriate funding. But Denatali Water, can't say enough great things about them and the work they do to support us. So all things in a good path with regards to your second goal. Your third goal, promote orderly, sustainable, and resilient development to the town through thoughtful, engaged, and equitable planning processes. You have a lot of plans going on. You completed the housing needs assessment in December of 2023. You also completed the tourism management and marketing branding strategy project, which was our local creative identity and brand in April 2024. The goal is to revise the water and sewer rates and plant investment fees, especially taking a look at an affordable housing perspective when it comes to rates. We're just waiting for a scope of work from Raftelis. We are looking to sole source with Raftelis because they've already built the model for us to kind of plug in the data into, and they completed your last rate study. So just waiting for them to give us a scope of work. Anticipate that this is a pretty quick turnaround because it's really kind of a plug and play with numbers situation. And so we are still anticipating coming forward in August to show this. And when I say we, y'all know I'm talking about the larger we. I will not, it will be other people who come forward. The other thing is your comp plan. You obviously heard tonight that the comp plan is full steam ahead. We've been working on existing conditions primarily, and so a lot of memos have gone around to a variety of internal and external boards and commissions for their feedback. There's the focus groups tomorrow, but really doing a lot of work on where have we been in order to create the framework of where are we going. You have your multimodal transportation plan. Fear and Peers is actually at the place where they have recommendations set, and they're currently reviewing those with all the boards and commissions. They did ProSAB last week, Planning Commission and SAB this week, DDA in June, and then they'll probably come to you in the community in July. But what they're doing is they're offering their recommendations and then seeking feedback from those boards first, because in their contract, there was one visit with every board and commission, and we agreed that recommendation phase was the right time for that. So we're very much on track with completing in July of 2024. And then, of course, securing funding will follow, but really need to see what are those strategies. But Fear and Peers will offer recommendations on what types of funding would be appropriate. Updating the pros was another thing. And just a reminder for those of you, we were doing the pros internally. It was myself, Nikki, and 2 ProSAB members. When diving into it and working with SE Group, really felt like maybe we should put this one on hold, because SE Group plans to have a whole parks recreation open space section, and we want to make sure they mirror each other. So there's obviously, this is a really heavy staff lift as is, and so it really made sense to maybe wait, let the comp plan move forward, and then pick the pros back up next year. And so we've added a note here that we feel that this goal should really be, not removed, but moved on to your 2025, 2026 strategic plan, when we'll have the results from SE Group and their specific Parks Recreation open space section.
How far did you guys get? Because I know you were working on it for a while.
Chapter 4, 5.
Out of
4 or 5. And we were working with the Colorado Tourism Office, which is great. They provided a great assessment where they looked at all of our assets and helped to kind of pull together those chapters of, here are the town's assets. I think where we feel like a little bit of a pause is, we don't want to be doing public outreach at the same time SE Group is doing public outreach. We think that would be confusing. And that's really the chapter we left off on, was like, what does the community want? And not wanting to create confusion. We have done that outreach before through GoCo and just like farmers markets and other things like that. But, SE Group's doing a really targeted focus area. So it made sense for us to just pause this. So unless there's any angst, we hope that there's support in Nikki and team picking it back up next year. Your goal number 4, this is the long one, is maintain and modernize the town's infrastructure to reduce public safety and health risks and improve the quality of life in our town. First is your streets infrastructure. We have the Safer Main Streets, which is the crosswalks from the library to RTD, from the visitor center across to First Street. I told you in the grants presentation a couple of months ago, or whenever that was, that's been delayed. There's been a series of delays with that grant, and so these deadlines are continuously having to get pushed out. The delays are not on us. They're on, unfortunately, how quickly certain assessments expire and having to redo these environmental assessments. And so we're waiting for the green light from CDOT that they have accepted our amended assessments. It's a little frustrating because not much has changed from assessment to assessment, but just the nature of kind of the CDOT game. So we're now anticipating going out for an RFP in June 2024. Nikki and Nathan Scalek, our JVA engineer, are putting a lot of pressure on kind of the third parties we're working with. Because if we don't get this RFP out in that timeframe, you lose this summer. And we will not, I do not believe the town will be eligible for an extension because we're on our 3rd extension for this grant. So it has to be done by June 2025, both this and TIPS. So Nikki's all over it. She will continue to be all over it, but we are looking at releasing the RFP. If we can get the RFP out by June 2024, then we should be able to meet these deadlines of having the signalized crosswalks, the crush, refine, replace by October 2024. So that's going to be kind of the big kicker. And it is set that, Nikki will do maybe a good grants update for you all, and hopefully we'll have more information in June or July about where we stand on this project. TIPS is in the exact same boat though, so I won't get too far into this, but TIPS also RFP. We hope that, we have to release 2 separate RFPs because they're 2 different projects with different funders, but we sure hope that maybe the same contractor bids on both. That would be great, but you can't control that. But this is the sidewalks from RTD down to the visitor center. If all goes well, we can do kind of the bike racks in September. We can do all the sidewalks. Just a reminder, we're not paving Jefferson until the sidewalks are done, because if you do the sidewalks first, you're just going to rip up the sidewalks to pave Jefferson. So that's slotted for June of 2025. The EV chargers, level 3s, just a reminder kind of on that grant is that the electric that Excel put in wasn't robust enough for the chargers, and so they have to come in and upgrade the electrical. They are doing it free of cost, but it means we're on their timeline. The good news is that they pulled a permit And I didn't think that they were going to do that until the fall. So they pulled a permit, said they're on track with getting these level 3s in. But our kind of commitment with Charge Ahead Colorado is that we will have this completed by October 2024, which means chargers in July, August, because it needs to be transmitting data in order for us to deem the grid complete. You've got your summer road, the summer improvement project. So in general, there was the improved resident satisfaction with streets infrastructure. If you recall, Mark Hall had brought forward a summer road improvement plan. So the first thing, we had 3 goals of paving. We paved last year, 3 areas. And while they're not goals on here, there is funding that Josh budgeted for paving, and he plans to pave Snyder and the first 100 feet of Big Springs this year, because it's pretty rough over there. So 2 priorities, not in the goals, but what he will do this summer. But under Snyder and the first 100 feet of Big Springs. 36,000 only stretches so far, and that's where it'll get us. Under the summer road improvement plan, there was that kind of examining the roads. That was done in January 2024, but that's an ongoing goal. Like it wasn't like a one and done, and Josh won't go out again with team. They'll always go out and continue to evaluate, but completing kind of the asset management side of this and just the assessment of road conditions, that was done.
That was the LiDAR that we had done.
Well, that wasn't just so that the LiDAR was specific actually to Big Springs egress. So we are benefiting from the LiDAR because we can utilize that for roadway. But the team also went out and did kind of their own I know you're gonna be sad, but by hand analysis of kind of roadway conditions and where are the priorities for kind of their summer work here. But there is LiDAR data also to assist.
Okay, but the LiDAR data you're saying was only done where? Like just up in Big Springs?
No, luckily it was able to capture the majority of the south part of town, but it doesn't capture
It doesn't capture, yeah.
anywhere like near the elementary schools. It was really like Old Town and Big Springs.
Okay.
So it was able to capture.
Are we able to get kind of a report on what that says?
The LiDAR?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So the other thing was that we talked about doing like ditches, but we don't want to go out, or culverts, I'm sorry. And we don't want to just go out and start installing culverts without having a full understanding of kind of stormwater management and how it flows. And so we'd like to amend this goal to say that we're going to design drainage ditch plan by September 2024 and then to construct in 2025. JVA is already is working on providing us a scope of work to be able to do that and utilize some of that LiDAR data to help us determine where. We also want to be mindful that we don't want to go out to every home and say, hey, you need a culvert now, if that's really not going to address the stormwater management challenges. And so we would like to change that goal to read as such. The aggregate on track to meet that. The team is ready to go. If you lived on 3rd Street, you benefited from some roadway work just last week. So they are out kind of trying to hit everywhere they can go. And then the last one is to kind of identify the funding. That's been revised to January 2025 because again, we want to be able to design. And also if we come to you and say, hey, you need a culvert, I would think if you're a community member, you'd be like, prove to me I need a culvert because that's at your cost per our code. And so this design is essential to be able to have kind of the data to say you are one of the homes that would require this. If you recall, we did ask you in the 2024 budget to budget funding to actually pay for culverts for homes, and it was determined that you'd prefer we not do that. And so we want to make sure that we're being equitable and that, if we're going to ask you to build a culvert, either have us do it or you're going to contract it out, that we have the proper design and mapping for that.
We decided not to put any money
Correct.
towards
You
helping.
put money towards culverts, but the instruction was that it was not to go towards paying for for residents who needed the culverts, that you wanted us to secure alternative funding as a means to kind of offset the financial burden.
That's right.
Emergency preparedness. The emergency operations plan is done. It was done in December. We were going to present it this month. However, we had an incredible training with Nate Whittington, Jefferson County's emergency manager, former Gilpin County emergency manager. And when we were doing ICS 100 and 700, really identify that there's some ways we can kind of ground that EOP into more specific Nederland. EOPs can read really broadly. And so really identified some ways that we can make it Nederland and department head specific. So Troy would like to work on some edits, therefore remove the presentation to August 2024. However, it is available. If any board members like eager, chomping at the bit, wanting to see it, let us know. We'll send it out, but just note that there is some additional adds to it. You wanted to budget money for training residents about emergency and disaster management and preparedness. That happened. Then you wanted to use that money to disseminate information, specifically targeted at wildfire mitigation. Capacity has been really hard. This was a goal that, is coming up on us quickly, and we're just realizing like we don't have the capacity to take this on, and had kind of a brilliant light bulb moment of like, well, Boulder Watershed Collective has staff who does just this, and they have the resources and the means and the creativity to be able to help not only do trainings, but also pull together materials to distribute to like homeowners. So what we want to do is partner with them, provide them the $10,000 to do all of this outreach work for us. They actually have prepared a proposal for how this would work, and then we would bring that to you to show you what they're recommending. It feels like a better ad. They have the capacity and that they are the subject matter experts here to do this work versus Troy, who's spread pretty thin between courts primarily and then emergency management.
What's that breakdown look like between trainings versus educational material?
Can I tell you at the end of this, since I'm sharing screen, I can't pull up that.
Oh,
other
sure.
document.
Miranda, this is Tanya. At the last meeting, we gave a nod of four to pursue a grant for tree mitigation through Boulder County, I believe it was. I think the deadline was in June. Is there going to be anybody who's going to fill that out?
Yeah, so we're working on that. Nikki and I are going to meet about it on Friday, just kind of how we're going to fine tune that application. But yes, our intention is to go forward for that grant.
Great, thank you.
Emergency egress for Big Spring.
Real quick, I know that Boulder Watershed Collective called me because I live in Old Town about kind of another thing they're doing in Old Town now with wildfire partners. They're trying to get people to apply for, the wildfire partners work, and I think it was just going to be that with this, not the home hardening, which they were doing before. But so are they roping that in because they're targeting that area first and kind of going from
So
high risk?
Yeah, we talked about kind of a whole little packet that comes your way that talks about what Wildfire Partners does and how, what dispensable space looks like, but also like, are you prepared to be without power for more than 24 hours? Like, are you ready? Are you truly ready? And really having materials that encourage people to think about, where are your important documents and are you ready to go with those if there's a fire and all the things that maybe people don't think about. And so it'd be kind of a packet that gets mailed to them, as well as a handful of trainings on emergency preparedness. Big Spring. So as I said, JVA completed the LiDAR work. They're now evaluating various design routes. We did actually recently meet with City of Boulder to talk about the dam. Really not a viable route, but we wanted to discuss it and assess. And so JVA will have more data about the why behind that. But obviously we're really looking at kind of routes that either take you up and over the ridge or going to bring you kind of down to town, but crossing the dam is kind of being ruled out pretty early on as not feasible, mainly again from kind of the Homeland Security perspective.
And we're going to be able to have that by December 2024.
That's their goal. They feel strong that they can continue forward to bring you the design, where this might be a little different. You've got until
Technically, like, I think it was April.
6 or something like that. You've got a while to complete this grant. I think that, yes, the study will be done. You all deciding on a route, which is a must. You have to pick a route. It may happen in 2025.
Right. Yeah. Understood. But the study could have gone longer, and we pulled it in because we said, no, we don't want the study to go into 2025. We want it to end by 2024.
And David feels very comfortable they can meet that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Do you know how many routes they will be assessing?
They're really scouring the entire Big Springs neighborhood. So I don't have a number for you, but that was the LiDAR data to really look at like any and every creative option.
Gotcha.
You also wanted to try and secure funding for a secondary bridge. We did apply for congressionally directed spending, but have yet to hear if we were selected as one of the projects to move on for consideration.
Did we apply?
We applied to Senator Bennett and
Senators.
Goose. We did not. He was not going to likely accept our application.
And that, would that 875,000 come out of reserve?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously if you were awarded, and it wouldn't be all at once. Like it would be, you know, it's like Big Springs. It's shared out over time.
Okay.
But yes, you would have to be looking at likely your reserves for that. Asset management. We are working with Lindsay Danforth, who's serving as a GIS consultant with us. She's been amazing. I added her implementation timeline. I sent that to you and put it into the packet. You could see her a little, she's checking things off, but she's done a ton of great work in terms of the snow route data that was uploaded that allows us, you recall we have a plow ops program, so you can see where plows are throughout town. That data helped to make that plow ops program happen. So it was great that Lindsay could provide that to us. She's done an inventory, done all of the water distribution system, converting sewer assets right now. This is really an ongoing project though. So we had a deadline of December 2024. Sure, we're going to meet that deadline, but this doesn't really ever end. And so it's hard to really say that there's a deadline at this point, but really appreciative of all the work that Lindsay's doing, and she's doing a lot primarily in utilities, and then we'll switch gears to kind of get deeper into streets. We have identified some holes in the data, and so Andrew Bliss and JVA are helping to try and close those up, but she's been great. Parks, Nikki and team completed the GoCo grant in September. They are aiming to go for GoCo funding for the rink and tennis court, but we don't know the timeline. It's still up in the air of when they even open the first cycle. So amended this goal to December 2024. You know, the goal would be to apply for cycle 1. If that doesn't work, you go to cycle 2 and then you go to cycle 3 and hope for the best. The one update here I didn't put in writing, but just wanted to alert you. You know, we've been trying to work with all parties on this, being the rink board, mountain tennis pickleball, ProSab, and parks. Even brought in a mediator because that relationship is quite tense and really didn't get moving in the direction we were hoping for. And so we did recently submit, Nikki submitted an email just to everyone just saying like, we value them as partners, we appreciate all their work, but in order to have this grant be successful, we have to go forward as town and ProSab. And so town and ProSab will be the ultimate designers of what this site would look like. And of course, still vet it through the community and through these different groups, but trying to do it as a collective whole is just not turning out to be a viable option. So. Karina McLeod, who's our administrative assistant, helped Nikki research some funding opportunities that town could apply for ADA equipment. So on track to be looking at, you know, some grants to apply for. And then the last one was to distribute the Metro football funds. This is slotted to come before you in June. Our recommendation of how to distribute these funds would be ideal if we could get these out by fall. I know many agencies are hoping even sooner than that. And so I think the faster you can turn this around, the better.
What would be the hindrance of turning them around like after that June meeting?
Nothing. I think, you know, we feel very strongly about the proposal we prepared on how to distribute funding is the right proposal as staff, and the youth partners all agreed. This got pulled off of a board meeting back in the day and just never could find a home again on a new board agenda. Because I think there was question of, can't we just give this money like directly to a youth and they can do with, you know, go decide what they want to do with it. It's not how the funds work. The funds are meant to go to organizations that provide youth programming so that the reach is farther than just one individual student. You know, if someone wanted to come forward and propose like, hey, I want to go to this camp, then maybe providing it to the camp. But it's really meant to give to organizations so they can create youth programming. And so that's why this was pulled. And again, just kind of unfortunate that it never found a way back onto the board. It's taken a long time because I think it got pulled fall of last year. So please don't move it. That's my plea. That's my plea. Town hall maintenance. You asked us to budget for town hall maintenance. We did. Town have looked into historical designation. Turns out it is way more involved than we had anticipated. A lot of research, likely going to need to involve the Historical Society, maybe even larger historians in Boulder County to try and get the data we need to apply for this designation. So we are looking to amend this goal to December 2024. And the visitor center team is actually going to take this on and do this research from kind of a capacity standpoint. But Parks team are wonderful in helping us address our maintenance needs. They do it at all of our facilities, but are going to target town hall, specifically some of the kind of the exterior, like the windows and the door and some of the roof in the annex, a lot of things. So, but the $10,000 will be used, but excuse me, for the necessary upgrades for this facility. Broadband. This is a great goal because we said that we were going to work on applying for funding by October 2024. We got funding in January 2024. So just a reminder, we were awarded a combined total of 17 million. Maverick is coming in with half of that. So the grant amount was 8.6 million to extend fiber to Nederland, unincorporated Boulder County, and Gilpin County. It is anticipated that they'll start with Nederland and seem to be on track with that. And so we anticipate that Maverick will lay their own fiber this summer. CenturyLink has also recently laid their fiber. So we do have a redundancy, which is great. It's what you want. And another thing, I think I've mentioned this before, but if you recall, there was a time where T-Mobile and Verizon were claiming they could serve us 100 up, 100 down. We did win that appeal, which was great. Thank you, community, for coming out and helping us with that.
So as a result, just for people's context, because we won the appeal, we're able to continue to pursue this broadband initiative.
Correct. Originally, if we had not won the appeal, basically the heart of Nederland, like Old Town, it was like 480 homes would not be eligible to have this fiber network.
Right. It would have just like gone around us.
It would have basically been like at Big Springs and like Sunnyside and some, yeah, up and around, but it would have skipped the entire kind of heart of Nederland.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Sustainability coordinator, the goal was to try to figure out how to fund Leah full-time. We got close. We created the sustainability and permitting fee that allowed us to bring on Leah part-time, and she is officially on board with us as a part-time employee. However, a very recent development, we were meeting with Lions and they were like, hey, are you still interested in cost sharing that sustainability coordinator? And our response was absolutely. So they're really interested in applying their Boulder County Sustainability Grant matching funds with ours to offset kind of the gap to get this position to full time. So it is looking like in 2025, you might be looking at a cost share situation with Lions in order to make this a full-time position. All right, goal number 5, augment and leverage the town's financial resources to support desired levels of services, economic growth, and to ensure upkeep of town's infrastructure. So the goal is to choose from 3 kind of funding opportunities, and you did, but some of these are just a little delayed. Obviously, the rate study is delayed, not delayed, but the goal was by August, and that's where we'll assess if and where fees should be increased or decreased. Paid parking, you did budget for paid parking. Took a little while to get the interstate parking contract set, but they're set to come before you next month to go over their contract and then determine if you want to move forward.
Did we anticipate revenue from them for all of 2024?
No, we started revenue in March. So we're 3 months, unfortunately, with
Okay,
that.
so we're 3 months behind in hitting that revenue target.
Correct. Yeah, we use the interstate parking contract that apparently that with other jurisdictions, but our attorney is incredible and really tightened it up for us, but it took a long time to get it back from them. So, but they're good to go, and so I think I have this set for your first meeting in June, and then they're ready to.
Go ahead.
I would say they're ready to get running and doing kind of a trial basis from July to December.
Why haven't we updated the code if we know we're doing this?
The code has been updated.
Oh, it says it will require
That statement
updating.
there is your goal. It's just a copy and paste from your strategic
Oh,
plan.
I got you.
You did update the municipal code to allow paid parking as a use by right.
Gotcha.
Fees for EV charging. Leah's working on getting our level 2s set up for charging. We actually had some challenges with ChargePoint in that we didn't have an account and then we weren't getting data and we had to jump through a couple hoops, but we're at a point now that Leah can get our level 2s up and charging. And we do want to give the community a heads up, like free charging is over. Like we don't want to just like throw it at them all at once. And so Leah and Peter are working on a campaign to alert the community that like, hey, effective this date, you're going to start seeing that these are being charged for.
When did we anticipate starting revenue for those?
So in March.
Okay.
Franchise agreements, the decision, there was no discussion about pursuing additional franchise agreements. We already have them with like major providers like Excel. So there wasn't really a whole lot we could do there. Nikki did add in some fees to the fee schedule for Parks and Rec services. So additional revenue in that department. Peter, of course, has 4 Netter Day events planned for 2024, and then we work with private event organizers to bring in special events. The town will be applying for the local planning capacity grant for housing coordinator. Thank you for approving that tonight. And then we are looking to go for sidewalk replacement. If you recall, last year we were hoping to replace the crusher fines. We're not awarded that grant, but are looking at alternative grants. And the DDA has budgeted $100,000 as match funding for that. And then tourism, Peter is working on a tourism management plan with the Colorado Tourism Office that he plans to bring before you in July. Last one. Listen to the voices of our workers, residents, property owners, and implement changes to the Nederland Municipal Code from the results of the housing needs assessment. You did the top 3. Coordinated with boards, talked about what code changes need to happen. We wrote the codes. You know, there are 4 ordinances that you passed, and you passed those ordinances December 2023. Of our peak-to-peak neighbors, we still are the jurisdiction that it passed the most ordinances, made the most code changes following our housing needs assessment. Now it's time to apply for funding. Funding is kind of constantly rolling, but I think for us, you know, I realize this isn't infrastructure based, but like, we've got to have a housing coordinator. There's so much coming forward and all of our involvement in multi-jurisdictional, the Boulder County housing. We sit on just about every housing board under the sun. And when I say we, that's me and Britt. And so knowing that this is all about to sit on Britt, it's a huge ad. And so Lions wants to cost share. And so that's what we're looking to do. And then the goal of that housing coordinator is that they will work on identifying and securing infrastructure funds. Bonus, we've done a couple other things that we just want to share. We continue to work with Rocky Mountains Performance Excellence on kind of how to improve our processes, and town staff have been deep in ChatGPT. That Nicole had asked that we do paid subscriptions for ChatGPT, and maybe slow to get the team bought in, but I think they're all over it. And I feel like every day I hear, I was using ChatGPT today. And so really exciting to hear that staff are in working on expediting aspects of their duties using ChatGPT.
Well, they might, the cult, no.
Right?
So
They drink the Kool-Aid.
they drank the Kool-Aid. Well, what I would say to that is there's some pretty amazing use cases I've been learning across the United States of other small towns that have been utilizing it as a productivity tool. And so when they're ready, I'd be happy to come in. And we just actually, my company, Women Defining AI, just published an article in Time. And so on productivity and using ChatGPT. So happy to share some of the knowledge with them.
Well, they're excited. They were like, do I have to? And I'm like, trust me, you want to. And now they're in it. Now you can't get them away from it. We partnered with Gilpin County on the multi-jurisdictional regional housing authority feasibility assessment. Successful completion of the election. Kudos to Macy. Great election, went smoothly. Obviously another one coming her way. She is an election master at this point, but always a great thing to celebrate. The grit removal system that's been in the works since 2019 is done. It's done, and it's in. The point of this is to remove grit before it gets into the wastewater system. It was just grinding down our pumps and costing us a ton. And so we're intercepting the grit now early on, and that was great. I just want to give shout out to staff for navigating the Excel power outage and the major snow event. I think those are 2 things none of us expected, but town did a great job. Engage with Downtown Colorado Inc. on 3 projects between kind of the DDA and also the Peak to Peak Scenic Byway. So it's been fun to continue to work with them. Peter worked with CTO to develop a social media strategy. And then of course, a lot of really kind of proud of how well that recruitment process and just kind of the flow of that recruitment day for the town administrator. Thank you for letting me do your state of the town address. Do you have any questions, comments, or feedback?
Real quick on the, oh, go ahead.
No, I don't. Sorry. Go.
Oh.
I'm trying to keep us moving though.
Can you go back to the last slide?
The thank you slide? Yeah.
No, the one that listed all the things. Can you just detail a little bit building on more efficiencies into your processes from Rocky Mountain Performance Excellence. Can you give a couple of examples of what that's been?
Yep. So he's actually working on two different things with us. First is actually special events, really recognizing that it's a goal in our strategic plan to utilize special events to kind of leverage economic development in town. And so working directly with the team that focuses on special events on how to effectively plan and execute our own events. I think, you know, the community has given feedback and we've recognized that maybe sometimes these things feel like they're coming together a bit rushed and wanting to utilize that as a tool for kind of project management and how to set milestones. It felt like the kind of easiest one. And then the other one is asset management, but not GIS, but really just kind of recognizing what are our various assets in town that we need to be mindful of in terms of kind of replacement and you know, efficiencies. And so recognizing that Lindsay is really working on more of our kind of underground infrastructure, we're talking about like our equipment and starting to prepare what level of service. Yeah. So not only just like how do we ensure that we're planning for our equipment needs or, you know, our personnel needs or our office needs. And so it's not this like rushed, like, oh my gosh, we need a grader now. But also how do we ensure that through that processing, we're performing a higher level of service? You know, we want to make sure that we're providing excellent customer service, but if we can't anticipate kind of our needs, then we're always going to be behind the ball on providing higher levels of customer service and levels of service. So broken into two different groups. You've kind of got the admin group learning project management through special events as the example, and then you've got the public works team and finance working on levels of service and asset management.
Cool.
Great. Thank you. Any more questions on the State of the Union? If not, we'll move on to our next information item of the evening. A thank you to Miranda. So Miranda has been, well, our last day of work is at noon on Friday, high noon on Friday. And she's packing up and driving away Saturday. So and this week you're able to meet with most, if not all, the boards each night. And I think you're covering over the last 2 weeks, you've been able to cover them all. And so I was talking about having a party, but we're not gonna. Miranda's gonna have a little Irish goodbye where she'll just disappear on Saturday. But she's making the time to meet with all the boards and the commission, you know, this week and last. So thank you. How long have you been our town administrator?
I was appointed town administrator June 2021 and then trained with Karen and took over in September 2021. Started with the town August 2019.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you is, you know, the first thing I'll say. It's been a lot of fun and learned a lot and enjoyed working with you in this role, as well as when I was in the PC and the BZA and those subcommittees. So I definitely appreciate everything you do for this town and, you know, the fact that this is your home and what you've done for us. And I'm excited for what's next for you. It's going to be wild to just turn your attention to that fully and just be a very different reality.
Definitely.
In a beautiful place.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We look forward to your triumphant return.
I know. See, Luke knows.
We
Already
expect
correct.
notification. We expect notification when you return.
When you come visit. Folks, speak freely.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Mayor Billy said, you know. I think we made a lot of good decisions over the last, you know, however many years, but I think hiring you back in 21 was absolutely the best decision that board made. And I personally want to thank you for how many times you know, not only saved the town, but saved my own ass as mayor when you like corrected us or, you know, talked me down off of cliffs before going off in the wrong direction. So thank you so much and can't wait to hear what comes next for you.
And I already cried earlier, so I'm done.
Maybe I can just say, you know, I wrote in my staff report and hopefully you had a chance to read it, but even just for the community, just like we've done a lot. And sometimes I hear people be like, oh, you know, we haven't done anything. And that was an opportunity for me to share how much we've done. We've done a ton. And I say we, it's the staff, it's the board. I've worked with 4 mayors. I've had that honor. I've worked with countless trustees, incredible staff. I think you all know I'm super culture oriented. Staff's number one, will always be that way. And it's been such an honor to serve and support them and to be able to celebrate all that we've accomplished. And it's bittersweet. And I keep saying I need a better term for bittersweet, but being my hometown, I will forever be grateful that the place that gave me kind of a start in will be a lifelong career for me in city management and town administration is my hometown. And I moved here kind of with that goal in mind of just recognizing that I get this opportunity that not many people do to serve their town, the town that raised them and help them be who they are. And Nikki also being from here gets it intimately. It means it has a different level of meaning when you can serve your hometown. And so it's really hard to leave. And I know I'm leaving it. The town are in the best of hands. They really are trained and ready to go. I do recognize we have some green and that's been brought up, but man, is the work ethic and the effort and the energy of this staff infectious, and it's beautiful and it's amazing what they'll continue to accomplish. So thankful for Nikki stepping into this interim role, one of our longest standing employees, and she's going to do a great job. And then even more excited for a new town administrator to take what I feel like is us being at a very stable place onto somewhere new. And that's something I'm most proud of, is reaching this point of stabilization when we've gone through some turmoil, but especially just reflecting on that staff and where we are today. It means a lot. And so had the honor too of interviewing with Chris Kelly this week. And so I think there will be an article next week, just kind of also just verbalizing kind of my journey and my experience here. But thank you to all of you. Thank you to the community, and definitely especially thank you to the staff for supporting me as I've done this really great job.
I also appreciate the hope for the community section. And I'm just going to kind of pull that out a little bit because I know that's a sentiment that is shared, and that, Miranda says, I encourage everyone to express their concerns and frustrations constructively, seeking understanding and approaching each other with kindness and respect. Constructive dialogue and mutual respect can transform our interactions and help us build a more connected and supportive community. By fostering a culture of empathy and cooperation, we can ensure that Nederland remains a place where everyone feels valued and heard. And I just think that needs repeating from time to time. So thank you.
Definitely. Any other? Tanya?
I wish I had more to say, but you've always been super supportive to me in whatever role I have played in town. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to wish Miranda the best and happiness in with a new job and excitement and of all that, and thank her very much for all the years working in that.
Thanks, Tanya. Folks, this is an informational item, and we know it's getting late, but if any of you folks out there want to say goodbye to Miranda, there's no one in the room other than those of us sitting around the table. So raise your hand or start talking.
Can I raise my hand real quick?
Oh my God, sorry. I'm so Tierney. I didn't even, I'm realizing I didn't get to.
I've only gotten to work with Miranda for a very short time, and that makes me incredibly sad because obviously you are so loved here and you've done such an incredible job. And I wish that we got to work together longer, but I'm excited to see what the next step is for you.
Sorry, Tierney. Thanks. Jennifer, Nikki.
I don't have to say goodbye yet. I can't do it right. There's no way I can do it right now. I have to be glued to this woman's hip for the next couple of days until Friday at noon, when I'm probably gonna have to kick her out of town hall or something. We'll have to call the PD in. So yeah, no, I'm not gonna think about it till Friday at 12:01.
So I'm hoping that Miranda and I still have our one-on-one on Friday, but I love Miranda. I mean, truly, I do love her. She's an amazing woman, always so positive, and it's just been a pleasure to work with her. I'm just going to be sad to see her go.
Macy, actually, everyone else in the room.
I also will see Miranda on Friday.
Okay.
Everyone's seeing me on Friday.
Oh, good. Well, if you're online, if there's something you'd like to say, now is the time. Before we move on to our action item and discussion item. Oh, there we go. Kathleen. Go ahead. Can't hear you. Okay. All right. We're going to move on. Sorry, Kathleen. Thanks, Miranda. And with that, we're going to move into our action item for the night, which is the plastic and styrofoam ban ordinance.
Yeah.
Ban
Great.
ordinance.
So last meeting, we brought forward to you the plastic bag and polystyrene ban. Just a reminder, this is a ban of plastic bags, polystyrene products, and then a 10-cent fee for paper bags. The only feedback you really had as a board was just to clarify the definition of plastic, which makes sense. You know, that seems appropriate. So we added that, Attorney Madsen added that. And so I think we're at a place where we are hoping you feel comfortable adopting. You know, our goal was for a July 1 implementation. We'd like to do education and outreach. Leah's taking the charge of that in June. And so having this adopted tonight would just keep us on that same path.
Any clarifying questions for Miranda? Because I don't see Leah online. So, any plastic bag lovers? Okay. With that, we'll go to public comment. I'm not seeing any one on public, no public comment. So with that, all right, Kathleen, yeah, this is an action item. So public comment, we do need you to get onto a phone fast. No, it is not. This is an action item. Oh yeah, the Ames. Yeah, it's an action item. You're right. The aim does not say that.
This is Tanya. I have a clarifying question.
Great.
Did we ever figure out what the deal is with the compostable bags? Are those banned as well or not? I don't see anything in the aim here about it.
Yeah, I was actually trying to find a wording on the biodegradable.
I thought we were I was
Jennifer.
gonna come back and we were gonna talk about that.
The way that the definition reads is plastic bag does not mean a reusable carryout bag or a compostable bag.
Oh, okay. So
So compostable bags are allowed then? I'm just trying to figure it out for.
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you.
all right. Thank you for that question. Hearing no public comments, we'll bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 862.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. No discussion needed, I don't think.
Okay. Trustee Miller,
Yes.
trustee Ty,
Yes.
trustee Larson.
Step
He's in
out.
the bathroom at the moment, not present for the vote. Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
trustee Maris,
Yes.
trustee Corvalon,
Yeah.
and trustee Larson has joined us again.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The motion passes.
Okay,
Thanks,
I
everyone.
didn't get my public comment and I would like to make it.
Okay. Go for it. You got 3 minutes.
Yeah, and it's, this system kept denying me access, just so you know, the phone system. So, the plastic bag ordinance, it looks to me like there's an excessive amount of enforcement with a $500 fine when we're talking about 60% of 10 cents going to the town in Nederland. I guess I'm also unclear. It says paper bags only are charged 10 cents. Can I get a clarification? I find it interesting that only the farmers market people will be exempt from the plastic bags, from not using them. Is that accurate too?
I think it says small businesses, which are businesses that have fewer than 3 locations in Colorado, are also exempt.
Okay, so that's all of, most of the businesses in Nederland are exempt then?
That's so cool.
Am I reading that correctly? I mean, I know it said that, but I'm just a little confused. It's because I'm pretty sure that most of the businesses in Nederland, aside from the dispensaries, don't have another location whatsoever.
So
Ace Hardware.
Ace Hardware.
And I'm not sure whether B&F's, you know.
Well, Ace Hardware
Alliances.
is licensed. I don't know if they own other Ace Hardwares, but
Right, so, but that's the state statute.
Right.
Requires that's prohibiting for multiple,
Yeah, I
if you have
think-
multiple locations. And so the town is doing stricter guidelines than what the state statute says. So if you're reading the aim, you should be looking at the ordinance.
yeah, I read the
So
ordinance, and it doesn't specifically say that, it doesn't in the definitions define what a small business is like the state statute does. So, it doesn't even address, what a small business is. It just has a number of exemptions, but according to the
retail
state
stores, which are
statute,
it has retail stores. Yeah.
retail stores, and then it exempts the farmer's market, and it exempts jewelry bags and button bags and all different other kinds of things that people would buy.
Correct. I mean, what's your?
Okay, so verification, you're going further than the state statute requires. And the state had sympathy for the small business owner, and the town in Nederland does not. Secondly, when we were in the bioweapon COVID attack,
Tolerance for it, but I do.
plastic bags were actually, the fee for plastic bags was removed statewide because it was a state of emergency that people needed to carry plastic bags. Number one. Number two, the reusable bags, I know don't get treated properly and bring a bunch of contamination into people's businesses.
So I'm going to give you 10 more seconds because we talked a lot as well as
Okay,
you. so-
yeah, well, I don't think it's written correctly, and I think it's a bunch of baloney, and I think the fine of $500 is out of control, and that none
Thanks,
of you have
Kathleen.
any sympathy for any business whatsoever. But I
Thank
can
you.
read the ordinance, and I will abide by what it says.
Thank you. All right. So with that, we'll move on to our discussion item for the night.
Okay, great. So tonight before you, we have Avi Rockland. Avi, thanks for hanging on with us so late. Avi is your prosecutor. And as you heard tonight, there are lots of tickets that are happening. And so Avi is working a lot more outside of court, dealing with counsels, working on plea deals. And so she's seeking to, of course, be compensated for this time because her workload has increased exponentially. So what she's seeking is either a flat monthly fee increase or being paid for time outside hourly for time outside of court. If you look at her proposal, it is recommended by myself and Rita Six, our town treasurer, to increase Avi's monthly fee versus going with the hourly rate. And so I think the question before you is, do you want to increase Avi's fee? And if so, we would bring this forward on a contract amendment on consent agenda at your June 4th meeting. But Attorney Rockland is here to speak. I don't know, Avi, if you want to kind of talk about where you're coming from with this proposal and then answer any questions you have.
Sure, I'm glad to add some comments. Thank you all, Mayor, Board, for putting me on the agenda tonight, and nice to see you all of source. I'm trying to see you through my computer screen. Yeah, as I stated in my letter, the municipal court has just been significantly busier in the last few months, which I really think is fabulous for the town. But I have noticed that I have a lot more out of court work. I have attorneys that are reaching out to me for plea deals. I have pro se defendants that want to talk to me outside of court. And I'm, as was stated, really just looking for a little compensation for that out of court time, either in the form of being paid hourly or just a bump in my flat monthly fee. And really, normally I would not ask for this except for towards the end of a year when you're doing your budget. This all happens so quickly, starting really, I think in February this year. The court has just been really busy. So I'm definitely available to answer any questions or to talk through this if you all would like.
Any clarifying questions for Avi? Does this basically 1 hour of extra pay cover the extra work you're doing? It's a little,
If
as I
we're,
read it, if you're going to go hourly, it was $2.25 an hour. It's a difference of $2.50 from 850 to 200. My math is right. So are you content with that?
well, thank you for asking. Yeah, I was trying to be fair to you all and not ask for a significant increase beyond what my hourly or my flat fee has been. It probably would cover it. I mean, each month is a bit different. Some months are busier than others. So I think overall it should cover it. I can reassess towards the end of the year. And if it doesn't cover it, then maybe come back to you all when you're actually dealing with budget as opposed to in the middle of the year. But
Okay.
I appreciate the question.
Yeah. Any other clarifying questions?
I think we should bring this back as a consent agenda. Prove the increase to 1,100 a month.
You just need a nod of 4, or what do you need to?
We need public comment as much as you love this. I'm actually going to make a motion because we took a long time, folks, to take credit for all the time we took with the Boulder County Sheriff's Office to extend the meeting there's one action item that Tanya and I, or one other business that we just want to bring up quickly, till 10 after 10. We probably won't need that long.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Macy.
Trustee Larson.
No.
Trustee Maris. Yes. Trustee Miller.
No.
Trustee Ty.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling.
No.
Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
And Mayor Billy.
Oh, yes. Next time, let's be quicker with the sheriff's office. All right. Any public comments on this discussion item? Two years. There's no one in the room, seeing none and hearing none online. We'll bring it back for a nod.
Nod.
Got nod of 6 in the room. So yeah, go ahead and you can bring that back.
Great.
For consent, and then Avi, just let us know with all of our, ticketing and police, if that's, let us know in budget season where you're at.
I appreciate that. Thank you all. Have a great evening. And
Thank
good,
you.
good luck to you, Brenda.
Bobby.
Thank you, everyone. With that, we'll go ahead and take public comments on non-agenda items. I see no hands raised. We had folks who wrote some things, and we've all read those when they came into our inbox, as well as they're in the packet. And with that, we just have go to other business. I just have one thing to bring up, and Tanya and I have been talking about. So Ron Mitchell approached me the other day at the meet and greet and just said he'd like to get his project really out to a public vote. And so we discussed it some with Jennifer and Miranda and Tanya and there were others, I guess, Britt and Ron. So I think that is something we're gonna, lay the groundwork for. He's saying now, actually, Tanya, if you want to talk about, your conversation with him, then I can.
Yeah, well, we had talked about trying to get it on the ballot, the July one, where the Teens Inc. issue is going to be on there, but it doesn't look like there's enough time for even Ron to get all the information that he wants on there in an organized way to us so that we can put it on the ballot. And I spoke to him today about the November election, which is a bigger deal anyway, as far as like more people will be probably voting. And he was really enthusiastic about that idea. And he thought that was going to give him enough time, and it should give us enough time. I think all we really need are some concrete deadlines as to when Ron needs to have all the information so that it can get on the ballot, and the ballot language. I think like if it's in November, I imagine a couple months prior to that, ballot language would need to get written. So that gives us the summer to bring it up for a couple discussions. I think the idea behind Ron's idea is to get ahead of any referendum that would probably occur if we approved any sort of height variance or really anything to do with the project. It would most likely go into a referendum vote, as seems to be what's been going on lately. So just get ahead of it, just give it a vote, let the people decide if they want it or not. And I don't disagree. I think it takes the pressure off of us as trustees to make such momentous decisions that would affect the look of our town forever. So I'm all for it going to a vote. I just don't know if Ron will have all of his different information the way he wants to present it ready by then, but that's on him. If we decide to kind of give this at this point, I think Billy and I are just bringing it up to get maybe like a nod of 4 people to decide, like, should we pursue this? Should we ask, Jennifer and the new administrator to use staff time with Ron to bring this to us as a discussion item in the near future? You guys feel like it's a good idea?
I think before I get to that, I'll just say, like, really what we're saying, Ron said he's under some pressure, I think, from, family or whatever. He wants to know where this is going to go. And we both agreed that no one really knows where the community sits with it. And so his idea is that ultimately bringing it to a vote seems like it's something he has stated before that he'd like to do. And, potentially would head off any potential for a referendum. The challenges are, how does that really go down? Like presently he's under code to have to go through a PUD. Will it be that we actually have to have, I think, and maybe I'll ask after I'm finished talking, I'll ask you and Jennifer and Miranda what you think about whether there's a nod needed tonight or not. But really, is he guided to, just continue with the process and actually turn in his PUD application? Does he want to break it up or do the whole 6 properties together and go through that route and get to a point where we decide that it moves to a vote for kind of the decision? Or do we do a vote where there would still have to be a rezoning, you were saying, that would happen, and that still brings it back to public, to the PC and to the BOT for public hearings? So it's not as simple, I don't think, as a initiative but if you did go that route, then there's all the incredible amount of variables and information that has to be in a ballot. So there's just a lot to be figured out at this point, but it does seem like something he's motivated to do. I think it's clear he would have to pay for any costs, not the town. He's looking at a November election, which is going to happen anyways with the national election. So,
Only if you're doing a coordinated election. I just want to say a couple of things. Is when I met with Ron, I encouraged him to go seek his own legal counsel
Yep.
and run this on his own at his own cost. And
okay,
so
yes.
the one cautionary tale I would say is what you're talking about is you're paying then for Ron's
Well,
ballot measure if you run it through a PUD and then you choose to put it forward. I would also say coordinated elections are 3 times, 5 times more expensive than a local election. We're talking $10,000+ for coordinated elections.
For him to put a ballot initiative?
Well, for you, if you want to put forward, when we put forward those tax initiatives, it was a $10,000 price tag. I mean, it's much cheaper to run a municipal election than a coordinated election, but I think those are things I would encourage you to think about is if you want to move forward with an election, which I think is a great idea, who's going to pay for that election? And I think the manner in which you run this and move forward really dictates who's paying. Like if you have him submit a PUD, goes through his hearing with the planning commission, then comes to the board and you choose to refer it to the election, I believe you would have to be the cost payer. You would pay the cost, so potentially, I don't know, maybe you can negotiate, but.
And really, I guess this is a little bit of there's nothing in the state statute that talks about who is paying. I mean, there is constitutional rights to initiative process and constitutional rights to referendums. So there's nothing in state statute about who pays for an election. And I think it's important to note that there's a lot of ways this could be done. This could be done, you can have elections 3 ways. You can have an advisory question, just like you had with the pump track. You can have an initiated ordinance that goes to an election. The initiated ordinance would be brought by Ron. He would prepare the ordinance language. An ordinance doesn't necessarily need to match our code, so he doesn't necessarily need to have an ordinance that is a PUD. But what the ordinance would be, if he wants to get approval for zoning development for that lot, it would be a zoning ordinance that would essentially change the zoning for his properties. And then the last type of election would be a referendum, and he'd have to go to the PUD process. Now he has to, what I understand is what he wanted to do at one point was to consolidate all of his lots, and he hasn't done that. So that's step number 1. That's a 2-step process. And then if he wants to do then if he consolidates his lots, he then has to do a PUD, and that is also a 2-step process. So to get it on a referred measure by November, that's probably not going to happen.
But, okay, but if he does a PUD and consolidates his lots, that's a process in which he would get approved or denied by the planning commission and the BOT, so there would be no need for an election. Right, it would come to us and we would approve it or deny it.
It seems to me there's just like his whole thing is too big and too complicated to consolidate into any single vote. Like I don't know how you'd possibly do it. It's a whole series of decisions which strongly impact the following outcome. So
Yeah, given the complexity, if he wants some kind of answer as to whether the town supports his project in the form it currently has been presented, then the only real thing that he's talking about is that advisory election, which is something similar to the pump track where he could put forward a, do you support this? But it's not legally binding to, yes, now that the town says they support this, we're building it. It's a sign of town support or community support.
And he can't put that forward.
But it could bind us.
No, the advisory question.
But
non-binding.
but it could be
Could be
sticky to
politically,
get out from under.
politically binding.
But, you know, a lot of our affordable housing resolutions have been sticky to get out from under. We get out from them pretty easily, so.
And what is the question? What would the advisory question be?
Right. No,
I'm-
no, I mean, so far, that's my biggest concern is there are so many factors.
Right.
I mean, I think, you know, what I'll say to Ron or Tanya is he needs to get a lawyer and figure out what he wants to do. And if he wants to bring this to a vote, you know, his lawyer's got to guide him on how he's going to make that happen. Or if otherwise he goes through the processes
Well,
laid
I
out
think-
before him.
I think initially it's about the height variance, right? Isn't that really the only thing that's not allowed in the code for the most part that we would have to approve or deny?
I
Well,
think it
and-
would end up being one of many, that would just be one of many.
Yeah, I think the
many
lot consolidation
variables.
is
I
the
mean,
other
like I
issue.
said to you today, I just feel like there is so much that will be on this. For the average person, it does, it would just be kind of a setup for failure where it's at now.
Just want to jump in with a 2-minute warning.
Okay, yeah, we'll be done. So I don't think there's any nod to give it right now, except to Ron to do.
Is there
you know.
public comment?
Oh, this is other business. This is not open for public comment. So that's my thoughts, Tanya.
All right. Well, I'll
And I-
share that and
I'll tell him that too.
yeah, a little too daunting, I guess, for a ballot issue.
But let's
Thank-
encourage him to start the process.
Yeah. Will do. Thank you.
Motion to
Any other
adjourn.
business?
Second.
Second. Macy?
Mayor Billy,
Yes, 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 yes.
Yes.
Trustee Miller,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yeah.
Trustee Ty,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Maris,
Yes.
and Trustee Larson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 10:09.
Thanks, everybody. Good job.